It was crazy when I joined the YouTube. I started hearing that audio like 2 seconds later. It totally works with it too, like with the existing audio.
Excellent. I think I'm
gonna
gonna
smash that like.
smash that like. Do it.
I was the 9th like today.
Aw, that's sweet. I'm actually gonna, let me bring up the screen and we'll just go to, Chicago gets to hear this as well, so I'm obviously gonna have to fade to the next screen anyways. So we'll go to you and me real quick. All right, just trying to get it together. How you doing, folks? Welcome, people. It's Johnny Million. Good stuff. And I need to open up a doopy-doop. I need to open up my, where is it? Not interview chat. It's comments and reactions is the name of the window that I need to be able to see in this particular circumstance in this situation.
Betsy Novak was the first like. Fine.
That's
fine. Be
very,
that way.
fine. Yeah, fine.
Betsy.
That's fine. Hey, Brad, what's happening? Don't forget to like and subscribe, give a thumbs up, all that kind of stuff. Also, boilerplate of things that I'm supposed to say. I'll remind Johnny will help me reset at some point. We'll get him on board with the reset. We gotta have I need a banter script. I gotta work on that. It's one of those things that everybody.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh yeah. My favorite one, my favorite banter script is Film Riot. Do you know Film Riot at all?
I don't know.
Okay, Film Riot. They're great. They're like a minor online university on YouTube about special effects. So if you want to learn special effects from, for After Effects or camera effects or any of that stuff, it's a great precursor. So when I was doing like a lot of green screen stuff for Sexy Liberal,
60 seconds, gents.
Thank you. I had to learn in a hurry. And so I just gorged on Film Riot, and his banter is, welcome to Film Riot, the show that makes it, special effects is very easy. I'm your host, Ryan Conn. And that, like, just, like, it's this long patter that he's got, and he just nails it every time. And I'm like, that's impressive. I got to work on that.
You work one in and just, like, sneak in pee-pee poo-poo.
Yeah, pee-pee poo-poo. Why? I'll just have an R2-D2 wheel on and go pee-pee poo-poo, and then go pee-pee poo-poo. Pee-pee poo-poo. Why is that? We're adults. This is a grown-up show. We're grown-ups. I'm sorry, chat room. I apologize.
On behalf, my job.
Get all the pee-pee and poo-poo out.
Yeah, get it done.
Pee-pee poo-poo. Wiener.
Just clear the decks.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
It's true.
Live from Chicago, the HAL SPARKS radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
HAL SPARKS, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
HAL SPARKS.
All right, let's do this.
Oh my goodness, the week that has been going on from the sublime to the ridiculous. This week has been a veritable
ridiculous.
It's been a veritable Chinatown plot point of stories. My sister, my daughter, she's my sister and my daughter. Which, being from Kentucky, I kind of take it personally, that scene. But anyways, from the horrible atrocities committed by Russian soldiers and their Chechnyan and I guess Syrian backups in Ukraine that came to light this week with the bombing of the train station and the reports of admitted sexual assaults by Russian soldiers to their moms back home on unsecured phone lines, because you always have a problem. Johnny Million, you should know this more than anybody as a student of Sun Tzu and the art of war. That one of the things you do is you secure them communications. One of the
important.
You do two things. You destroy your enemy's ability to communicate, and then you make sure that your communications are super secret, double covert, undercover, coded non-transmissible.
Russian soldiers are confessing to their parents that they've committed sexual assault?
And their girlfriends, that they witnessed it. Oh my gosh, Hal Vickery, thank you so much for the super chat. More than I'd usually give during the middle of a month, but I'm celebrating Ketanji Brown Jackson and my second COVID booster, he says. We're glad about that, and we're very excited. We will be getting to the wonderful talk of Ketanji Brown Jackson now becoming an associate justice of the Supreme Court.
That's the sublime part.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah. And there's plenty of ridiculous. I will say that considering, like with jobs numbers, the fact that inflation in the United States, based on what's going on around the world, is amazingly low is an amazing story. But but on the ridiculous side of the scale, it's off the charts. We are definitely listing to port in terms of ridiculous storylines. Not the least of which is, of course, these reports, these communications coming from Russian soldiers back home that are being intercepted by the Ukrainians because these people are calling their relatives from cell phones taken from dead civilians that they themselves may have been involved in killing, or using landlines in buildings they have taken over. So far, and this is only like what they know of, the Ukrainians have killed 7 Russian generals. That last count. It may be as high as 9, but the other 2 have not been confirmed yet. Apparently, Russia's rethinking this whole send your generals to the front business, but a little too late. And in the process of doing that, one of the reasons why in the world do you think the Ukrainians would be able to hit and find the location of the generals of the Russians? Well, it's because those guys are calling Russia on cell phones that are not secure and being targeted by airstrikes and by mortar rounds and artillery, because they're basically, it's like they're walking around with one of, those Mac little pocket tags that you can get now for your keys that chirp when you find your keys. They're great. I have a couple of them. And interestingly enough, I left my keys in my girlfriend's car, in Summer's car, and she was driving around, and she got a message on her phone that somebody has put one of these tags in your car. You're being followed by one of these tags.
Oh shit!
Which is, you can't swear like that. You can't.
You can't swear
like that. You can't do that. Devin has to dump that. And now we got to wait for it to catch up. We got a whole 7 seconds.
I know we can work on a reset.
Yes, we can. By the way, you're watching and listening to the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. We're here every Saturday, and normally Johnny doesn't swear, but that's an extraordinary thing.
I think that's my first.
It is. I think it's your first on-air fail. We're very impressed. In all these years, everybody gets one mulligan, right? So, but this is true. When for those of you that are just catching up on radio, thank you for the super chat, Daphne. By the way, she says, "No, Johnny Million, you are the sublime part." And she says, rest in peace, Eric Bollert, who passed away this week in a bicycle accident, which was shocking and horrifying.
Oh, that's awful. I didn't know that's what it was.
Yes. Still can't get my head around his untimely death. She says, a tragic loss to the progressive movement. No question. Just, beloved by everybody who knew him. So one of the most absurd things about what's going on in Russia is I think if you referentially look back, at what was said about Vladimir Putin during the Trump years, well, at least he's a strong leader. Well, at least he knows what he's doing. At least he's better than Trump said on multiple occasions that Vladimir Putin is a strong leader. He knows how to control his country. He's got, he's tough. He basically broke into Macho Man every time he walked in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And yet, it does not seem like that is the case at all. Vladimir Putin, apparently, like any autocrat or dictator who who start sniffing their own farts. Snarts came out of that word. I formed a new
everybody
word.
loves their
He's
own
snarting.
brand.
He's snarting. Yeah, who's high on his own stash of butt wind. Because he has been isolating himself during COVID out of fear that it will do terrible things to him. And never mind the paranoia I feel personally that for whatever reason, the Chinese and the Russians have been very linked during this process. They have more issues than I can get into today. But on this level, they've been very much simpatico around this. And the Chinese and Russian panic around COVID seems really extreme, considering the number of deaths they have allegedly had in their country. The leaders themselves seem extraordinarily fearful of it, considering that, they believe they have vaccines and treatments and the like. It's curious. It's almost as if...
Poo picker upper said, I like snarts.
Snart, yeah. He's snarting. Snarting is now a word. So this person has been sniffing their own farts. This is someone who snarts. We created a sniglet, and I'm very proud.
And we find out later that Devin is just like bleeping the heck out of the show.
Yeah, that's right. None of it's making it to air. There's the whole show. Yeah. So, but this illusion that he has that Putin is not only a strong leader, but that he's a strategic leader. That he's not a paranoid lunatic who's locked himself in a room. Like Howard Hughes peeing in mason jars and growing his fingernails out while he fears cockroaches.
I know his strategy.
What's that?
He has zero empathy for anybody else. He's insanely selfish and will do anything to anybody to solve the problem that's right under his nose.
Yeah. That's what Donald
most humans won't do.
That's what Donald Trump would refer to as a strong leader.
Yep.
Say what you will about him, but he's also smart and together as a fella. He likes riding horses bareback. He's got a sexy ballerina contortionist girlfriend that he keeps in a love nest in London, like a low rent heterosexual Jimmy Savile, and and apparently he makes $146,000 US a year and his salary, and yet is the richest man in the world. 200 billion net worth allegedly. Now, I'm sure that's been cut in half in the last couple of months, and he can't reach the rest of it. So that's fascinating, and that's another story as well. We got to take a break. When we come back, I would like to dive into this some, and I would also like to dive into the fact that it is... We've often heard birds of a feather flock together, have we not? And there's been a lot of, flocking going on in the world of Trump and Putin over the years. And their entire plan, both of them, it was flocked from the beginning. And if you look at the parallels between the Jan 6 insurrectionists and what we are now finding out about Don Jr.'s text to Mark Meadows post-election,
we have all the power.
and the power, and forethought and strategery that they had, and then you look at how the Russians are doing in Ukraine. Maybe there's a reason why these two leaders got along so well. Maybe there's a reason why Kim Jong-un launched a phony missile a couple of weeks ago and got along with. He basically launched the missile version of Trump's Truth Social into the Sea of Japan.
I didn't even hear about it.
Oh yeah, well that's how good it was. You mean Truth Social or the nuclear or the ICBM?
The ICBM, that's crazy. All right, we got to go to break.
We got to go to break. This is the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. We are on infotainmentwars.com. Who needs the documents? I've got it all memorized. And, of course, twitch.tv/HAL Sparks if you got young'uns who like this kind of thought, who are still living at home and yet could be out on their own, quite frankly. They legally could be out, and they're not. Well, they know what Twitch is, and they can subscribe on there. Twitch.tv/HAL Sparks. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. We'll be back right after this. Oh, Lord. So, couple of things Let me see if I can.
Oh wait, can I show everybody in the YouTube stream my new
Yes, absolutely.
thingy?
Hold on. Let me show. I'm gonna do. Yeah, look at that. That's Johnny's new tattoo. Isn't that cool?
Look at that. Yeah.
That's just wicked. It's super cool.
That was so much fun. The hardest part was sitting all goofy in the chair because it's like the back of my forearm.
Yeah, right.
So I was sort of like kind of on my stomach and kind of on my side.
Right. Let me try to bring up images.
Thanks everyone in the chat for the nice words.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy with that. I wish I was Miles Morales, Spicy Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
West Web, it's shining because I've still got it all covered in goo.
Yeah.
It's healing. It's only like a week old.
It's what made me go put lotion on my face because my skin is really dry from being at the beach. When Johnny was like, I was like, oh God, my face looks so dry. It's because we were at the
It is funny
beach.
when you see, or when I see other people putting lotion on, I start to feel all prickly, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I should have lotion on right now.
yeah. I'm a little ashy. I need to give myself a good dry brushing.
I gotta
But-
say, your triceps are looking fine lately, my man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, they're getting together. You want to see my new workout tool? If I have a
I
second.
don't know. Oh, that's awesome.
It's a
A
kettlebell.
25-pound Thor hammer.
Yeah, it's a 25-pound Thor hammer for a kettlebell.
20.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
isn't that great? Yeah. So I'm you can do like regular kettlebell stuff just by holding it like this or whatever. But I just love the idea that like somebody comes to the door and you're like, "Hey, what's happening? Need me to sign for anything or you new around here?"
Attention, stop what you're doing.
Because we're coming back to the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Now, some people may or may not know that I wake up every day and I try to cultivate a sense of gratitude. You know, it's something I learned from The Secret, and I've kept it for a long time. I even sometimes will, you know, as a reminder, I'll carry a gratitude rock in my pocket, you know, just rub it when I just remind myself of all the things that I have to be, you know, happy about and you know, grateful for in my life. Count your blessings. That's what I say. And one of the ones that I added a little over a year ago was thank God that the attempted coup of our government on January 6th and the lead up to it was strategized and implemented by the dumbest people on earth. Unequivocally, if there had been a brain among any of these idiots, we might be in big trouble as a country, genuinely.
Yeah.
But since everyone involved was so magnificently stupid, I honestly, the only worry I had on January 6th was for the physical safety of the people there, but not for our democracy or our government as a whole. There was no way. As a matter of fact, the actions of these idiots was so ham-handed and so terrible and so blatantly awful that it guaranteed that all the delay tactics that Ted Cruz and all these nudniks had put together were going to be thrown completely out the window. And it was like, all right, enough. We need to count these electoral votes and just move on because this is gross. Any chance they had to soften this blow and or slow down the process which we now know, according to texts that Don Jr. sent to Mark Meadows, understand the people involved in this and go, oh, thank God that the strategy was implemented and put in place by Don Jr. and carried to Trump via Mark Meadows, like the lamest people and with the weakest idea of just conceptually of strategy and functional battle plans. Like, honestly, there were, and it's a good thing, quite frankly, that there were no major, military actions that need be taken during the Trump years, because he would have been the worst person to do it. I mean, obviously, the Syrian bombings in response to the gas attacks, where he was basically calling Russia and going, move out of those 2 buildings, and which of the runways do you not use anymore because it's too short? Okay, we're going to bomb that one and those 2 buildings. So move your guys across the street. We'll do a surgical strike. You won't even feel a hot wind. And they did, and then we gave them the base. Boink. Just, So these are the same people who had a plan for January 6th, man. They were ready, they knew the next morning, they knew weeks before, by the way, that Trump was going to lose, because their own internal polls had them panicking, which is why Trump was like, it's going to be rigged. It's rigged. It's riggedy rig. The reason he had to say that was because he knew he was losing. Everybody told him, you got to, like, literally, like within the last 6 weeks of the leading up to the election, everybody at their strategy meeting was just basically like, so where do we get boxes? that was the strategy meeting for the final 6 weeks of the campaign. Do we move our stuff into storage and then to the other place, or at what point do they literally cut off rent in my office? Can I sleep in my office for a couple of weeks while I search for an apartment? Like, the staff was everybody had a foot out the door. Everybody was planning to leave, right? So the beauty of the idiocy is something that I'm just grateful for every day. That this all relied. Somebody's yelling, like, EO in our chat room says, "Is U-Haul open yet?" I'm like, what time does U-Haul open the day after the election? I think they open at 9, but it might be noon. You should call, right? So Don Jr. apparently was sending texts to Mark Meadows. The crucial one on November 5th was, it's very simple. We have multiple paths. We control them all. Which is true. So the fact that they couldn't or didn't is amazing. They didn't have multiple paths. They had no paths. There were no paths. But they did control the paths and could artificially create, bulwarks or dam up the process. And he was saying we have operational control, total leverage, total lack of punctuation, by the way. Moral high ground. POTUS must start second term now. Moral high ground, whatever that means. Please. The idea that Donald Trump and moral high ground, just, okay. POTUS must start second term now. Now, the idea with that one was, momentum will kill this. Let's just start acting like we won. Let's just go for it. And then as we go for it, that we'll send the electors back. We'll do all this stuff. And basically, he's already planning his thing. And it'll be like Bush v. Gore, where everybody had already moved on about Florida. The Supreme Court had stopped the count and all this stuff. When the count was finally done, after everything was certified, Gore had won by 500 votes. He won Florida by a hair's breadth, but he did. And therefore, he would have won the Electoral College, and that would have put him in the White House. And but the nation had moved on. And Bush had already been sworn in. Also, the other lesson from this, which apparently the Trump crowd could never bring themselves to learn, that once the dude is sworn in, you got to wait till the next election. We have a system of government. Sorry, that's why Bush was president his first 4 years. He got reelected, but the first one, Gore won that one. technically. But because of how it played out and the fact that George Bush was sworn in as president, you don't get another bite at that apple for 4 years. So apparently that lesson they totally didn't get. But in this particular instance, they are genuinely talking about the fact that they think that they can just mow through the next few months, act as if we won, we just won, we won, say we won. That's what Rudy Giuliani had also texted. Just say you won and keep moving forward. And at some point, the American people are lazy and don't care about freedom or their system of government at all. We've all fallen back into morbidly obese app people who believe that government should be swipe left or swipe right, and anything more with any more effort than that isn't worth our time. Blow it off, and we won't. And we'll deflate the voting public, and that'll help us in the election for these senators that's coming up. That was their argument, that the American people suck. The MAGA crowd and the America First argument was, if we just bore the American people into believing he's still president, they'll go, oh, well, and that'll be it. And that was what they were texting to each other. So he said Trump told Meadows he could file lawsuits and push for recounts in certain swing states to prevent them from certifying their results. They tried all that stuff. Didn't work. They did automatic recounts because of the narrow margin in some states, but even in the ones with the greater margin where the Republicans are like, we couldn't have possibly lost. Donald Trump is the most famous and powerful and interesting and sexy and strong and smart person that has ever lived. He and the land are one. He pulled the sword from the stone. He is the king. And because of that, he must have won. So, oh my God, count it again. Count it again. Turn those machines back on. Sell, sell, sell. And so it didn't. They right. It was the Dukes the whole time. So he said Republican legislatures could step in and put forward fake Trump electors. Another thing they did actually try. The whole thing's there, right? Republicans control Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, etc. We get Trump electors, said Trump Jr. in his text. That didn't turn out to be the case either. That's not how they work. And also the electors they don't get to bully the rest of the state. This is not a small version of like landowner fiefdom in feudal England. That's, the electors don't get to go, these serfs don't know what they're talking about. This is a rotten borough and I'm in charge. I'll tell you what they really wanted. Why am I losing? I don't hear you, Johnny Million, for some reason. I'm not getting audio from you for some reason. You're like choppy or something. There you are. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Say hi to me, Johnny Million. That's very weird. So the interview, something's weird. The interview audio is really choppy right now on the inside of this, so it's coming from your end. Can you switch mics and then switch back or something or hang up and call back in the interview thing real quick? Yeah. He'll be back. Don't worry. Wasn't that weird? Could you guys hear that? Yeah, it was like a quacky, odd sound. Johnny Chipmunk. There he is. Eddie's calling in. He's calling Johnny. Are you there?
Check 1, 2.
Yep, sound way better. There you are.
It's so weird. Yeah, I just unplugged it and plugged it back in.
Isn't it funny how that is? That's funny. When we come back, we'll do this. Let me let's see. I need to copy this because I'm going to show you. Just copy it. Hold on. I should just copy this. Copy, and then paste, and
the chat is saying that my audio went out because I dropped the S word in the middle of the broadcast.
That's right. You've been You got censored by the gods. Oh, well, that's fun. Normally, I don't click on ads that I see when I'm looking for stuff, but I will. In this one particular case, there's an ad for hot sauce. It's an ad for hot sauce that is in grenade bottles, and I'm always on the lookout for gifts for my dad because his birthday's 2 days after mine. 3 days. Thank you. 3 days after mine.
Yeah, that seems like a good one.
Yeah, that'd work for him. So let me. I in the chat for this. You can see the interview chat on your end.
No.
Jump on.
Oh, it's over there.
Yeah. Wow. Splang.
Go with progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Got it.
So I'm reading this article. CNN got these texts apparently, or got a good look, gander at them, and we're able to CC them to a bunch of different news organizations. And we're continuing with the Don Jr. texts, which basically lay out everything we saw in the months coming from from November 10th on, when the panic had set in and they knew they were losing, right? So Republicans control 28 states, Democrats control 22 states, Trump Jr. wrote, referring to what happens when there's a tie in the Electoral College with each state delegation in the House casting a single vote. Once again, Trump wins, the former first son added. I love the former part. I'm glad they added that part. We either have a vote we control or we win, or it gets kicked to Congress 6 January 2021, which is, again, it gets kicked to Congress on that day. If they can make that happen, they can send the fake electors, or if they can stop it until the fake electors arrive and then they seize it up, then they can make it just a single vote per state. And since there are 28 red states with way fewer people in them, the red states, by the way, that he's talking about have fewer people than the minus, I suppose, Texas. The other 27 have fewer people combined than LA, San Francisco, and Seattle and Chicago. And they would all those states would have a single vote, and California, Washington State, and Illinois would have one each, right? Mm-hmm. Trump Jr.'s lawyer, Alan Futerfas, really? Futerfas disputed whether the messages were written by him. After the election, Don received numerous messages from reporters, supporters, and others. Given the date, this message likely originated from someone else and was forwarded. So the defense, again, from the Trumps is, this wasn't my dumb idea. I just passed it on. As if that's a defense. That's kind of extraordinary. I mean, it's par for the course. This isn't crap because I thought it up. Someone else thought it up, and it's crap. And it just sounded good to me, right? What Trump Jr. floated was attempted during the following weeks. Trump's legal team, led by former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, again, even at the general level, there's so many parallels between the Russian attempt to attack Ukraine and the Jan 6 wannabes in their the idiocy of the upper echelon. It's amazing. Trump's legal team filed more than 60 unsuccessful lawsuits challenging the count based on the then president's unfounded election fraud claims. The lawsuits weren't enough to keep electors from meeting on December 14th to determine Biden the winner of the Electoral College. On the same day, however, alternate electors met in swing state capitals and voted for Trump, which was adorable and illegal. Like, oh, hey, why don't I? Hey, Johnny, how about this? Why don't we just preemptively declare ourselves electors, no matter how the next election goes? I'll just say it. You're an elector. I'm an elector. We're pro-Democrat electors, and we'll just go. And we don't even have to live in the state, because
we'll go to Indiana and go for things.
Yeah. All right. What's the big deal? You can carpet bag your way through this too. So what do you say a bunch of us all just declare ourselves electors and go to Tennessee and just go, yeah, Tennessee, I know how you normally vote red, but we've decided we're going to be your electors. Get out of here. All right. Trump Jr. also told Meadows he should, quote, fire Ray, fire Fauci. Again, this is something that Trump has promised to try and make happen when he becomes president again, which is the president has the ability to fire any appointed or a confirmed member of the government at any level, which is just, again, a recipe for just idiotic dictatorship. There's a reason why there's checks and balances on this. He has the ability to get rid of people, but there is a process to put someone else in. You can't just knock somebody out and put in a loyalist, knock somebody out and put in a loyalist. That slows the roll. That would, in the old parlance, that would be a conservative way of running your government, because you don't want everything to just be willy-nilly, libertine, slapdash. I don't like you anymore, Jeff Sessions. Who can we find? Who can be my Roy Cohn? You're in. Like that kind of stuff. You have to get past at least some checks and balances.
Make the Democrats way more conservative, because they're all standing on the rooftops going, "Could we follow the rules?"
Yeah, exactly. Right. So in reference to FBI Director Chris Wray and Anthony Fauci, both men remain in their positions to this day. Again, can we have a moment of gratitude and thankfulness that this entire scheme was run by morons, top to tails. Fish stunk from the head and still does. Thank you for subscribing, ophthalmologists. And don't forget to subscribe, by the way, at infotainmentwars.com. We're trying to drive our numbers up. I'm competing against people with millions of subscribers who've been doing this for a decade. And we're doing really well. We're at 31,000 plus on YouTube alone, which is great. And we're trying to get to 1,000 on Twitch, which is always an ice skate uphill. So if you feel like doing that, or you're on any of those platforms, give us a subscribe. If you're on Facebook, like the page, follow the HAL Sparks page there as well, and you can watch the stream from wherever you're most comfortable. I bring my show to the audience. That's what I do. And if you're listening on WCPT on the radio, good for you. Program that button into your car. It happens one of two ways. Modern cars, you just push the button and hold it, and it'll automatically do it. Other cars, you have to hit set and then do it, but it's that simple. Honestly, you can do it. All right, so the House voted in December to hold Meadows in contempt, but the Department of Justice has yet to act on that charge. He was found in contempt because he's not showing up. The texts were part of a tranche. It's one of my favorite words, by the way. Tranche. Yes, the French don't have a word for tranche. Shared by Meadows with the House Select Committee on January 6th and shared with CNN. This, again, the pile of doofuses brings us in many ways as a great segue to Russia and the fact that the Russian plan looks like it was coordinated on Truth Social by Rudy Giuliani, Levin Igor, Don Jr., and Trump himself, because it's FUBAR from top to tails. It's a mess, and the myth of Russian military superiority, has been laid bare for the entire world in such a way that Russia, in theory, much like the United States. If we were in some sort of conflict, we could pull troops from areas of the world, bases in Qatar, for example, or Germany or something like that. We could move those people around. And the reason we could move those people, those military, either, fighting forces or service personnel, intergovernmental, ambassador staff, we can move those people around the world because the function of those bases will not lessen strictly because there are a few less people there. Nobody's going to question the tenacity of a military base that the U.S. has based on how many people are in it, really. I mean, obviously, if there's a skeleton crew of 25 people, some ISIS groups might see that through some binoculars and decide to take a shot. But it's not the same thing. Russia has military forces in Georgia, in Chechnya, in all of the stands, all along their Chinese border, in Kazakhstan along the Chinese-Kazakh border, to deal with and repel genuine forces in those areas at all times. For all the talk about our southern border and there's an invasion at our southern border that the Republicans are talking about, as you know, because women and children running from gang violence who are seeking asylum is the same as tanks amassing on the Ukrainian border, according to Republicans, which is yet another reason why you would never let them be in charge of anything that matters ever again. That Russia really does have ongoing conflicts in multiple places. And if they lost ground to that, if they pull back any of those forces, the Georgians, the Chechnyans might see their moment. Even the Kazakhstan government might shift if they have an insufficient military force in and around the border of that country and interacting with the installed government of those countries. Basically, what happened in Ukraine over the course of since 2014 would start to happen in all these areas if they didn't have soldiers present. So they can't pull those, and those guys are the most battle-hardened, are the most, strategically necessary. They're the high-end soldiers in this. These are the guys with some time in the military. They're not green recruits. And they can't afford to take them from any of those areas and send them to Ukraine. Because A, they're going to die and are irreplaceable. And B, they will leave gaps for the other attacks to happen. Now, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to discuss the Russian demographic issue that is the primary reason why Ukraine, why now. It is one of the things that I've mentioned it on my live stream. Some people know that this is one of my areas where I like to look at the details around this stuff. And there are some surprising reasons. I think some people will be shocked at why Russia did this now, and the fact that it had nothing to do with NATO expansion. Nothing to do with any of the predicates that they've been talking about. Nothing to do with the speech even that Putin gave. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. So the loop back audio. Oh, I think loop back audio should. Oh, I see. That's part of what's being wonky. So let's see. Go back to here. This loop back audio. Just turn this off and back on. Yeah. So hopefully, sorry that if the Chicago audio sounds a little wonky, guys. Whatever audio creep that happened when in Johnny's interview audio is doing the. It's like working its way through the other stuff. So, let's see. Move back to here, and I'll give us. I've got to throw some titles in here so everybody know who's the who.
Yeah.
Let's see. Whoops. Get back in here. There we go. And there we go. And move this feller down over here. Excellent. And then you guys know who I am, but I'll put one up anyways because for posterity, when the aliens watch this later.
Yeah.
Super important. Thank you. Thank you, Benny Loco. Reminding everybody to give a thumbs up for the show. Ding! Here. I feel welcome back. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up if you're watching the show right now live. Just whatever the like button is on whatever service you're watching on, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, even on Twitter. We have people on Twitter, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but according to Devin Nunes, is a ghost town now because everyone has gone to Truth Social, where where they have less than 200.
I didn't know Devin Nunes was still alive.
Really?
Yeah, I'm surprised that he exists.
Oh my Lord! And you have not heard his quote that that Truth Social, which has less than 200,000 active users, 70% of which are male, leading me to believe that Trump is going to rename it from Truth Social to Trump Sausage Fest, came on and said that Twitter is a ghost town. Nobody goes there. And Truth Social is the tops. It's aces. It's super primo good. And of course, it's got less than a fifth of the people that are on Getter, and that is a ghost town.
What is Getter?
Getter. There's Getter, Parler, Truth Social, Gab. Telegram is kind of being used as a catch-all. Still a right-wing site to post stuff on. MTG and all them post their stuff that gets kicked off of YouTube for being brutal, obvious lies. They post on there. But the Gab, Getter, and Parler and Truth Social are four of the exact same thing. There is no one on any of those sites, with the exception of maybe Truth Social, because I don't think everybody has an account on there like they would want to. But if you're on Getter, you're on Parler and Gab, and you have accounts on all three, and you post the same crap on all three. And so all the users, it's an echo of an echo chamber.
Yeah.
It's three apps where you're doing exactly the same thing for exactly the same audience. It is an amazing waste of time. And let me tell you, besides the fact that 70 terabytes of Parler data was leaked, which includes all of the metadata from the photos and videos that people posted on there, because Parler does a direct capture of your videos, a one-to-one copy instead of a reposting of your photos. What the hell? Which is crazy talk. Besides the fact that that all three of those are sort of repetitions. Besides the fact that you have to have three apps again to do all these together. Besides all that, what chapter in Art of the Deal is in a saturated market, whatever everyone else is doing, that it's already holding an increasingly shrinking market share, join in with that.
You do it too.
You do that too. I mean, honestly. If there's already three right-wing echo chambers with exactly the same audience, why would you add a fourth? It's just dumb. And again, with his SPAC money, in theory, buy Parler or Getter or Gab and push it to the front of the line. You know what I mean? Add your weight to, now, full disclosure, I read Art of the Deal in 1989 because I read all of those kinds of books. I read Og Mandino's Success University, which I read Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. All those books. When I was starting out, and I still refer to a lot of those books to this day for motivation, ideas. Reforming a plan. Every so often, you got to clear the deck and start from scratch and see how you can move forward. It's a good idea. It's healthy. And even in high school or right after, I knew that Art of the Deal was a load of crap, that it was bloviating nonsense. The only book worse than that of the books that I read was Dianetics. I read Dianetics all the way through. Remember the ads? Why do
I remember seeing Dianetics on your bed in high school.
That's right. I read it. Why do I have all these unconstructive thoughts? Page 137. Why am I a big gullible dummy? Last page. Anyways, they got me. And the reason is because Dianetics the first 3 chapters are kind of rudimentary brain chemistry, rehashings of stuff that were in studies, like the brain does this and Pavlovian responses, all the stuff you would hear in kind of junk pseudoscience. And then the rest of the book references the first 3 chapters. And that's the biggest jerk move in writing is, as I said in chapter 2, okay, shut up. You can't send me back to the stuff I've already read. Yeah, that's already in the brain pan. You can't add reinforcement from what I've already read. It's far too biblical. So, anyways, it should come as no surprise that the Trump world is full of geostrategic morons, and that they, in many ways, are excited and impressed by other geostrategic morons like Vladimir Putin. And in the lead up to this war, everybody was saying, when he had less than 100,000 troops at the border of Ukraine, I was one of those folks who this might be him. He might pull back and then hit it in a couple of months, because that's what he did in 2014. He builds up, draws back, builds up, draws back, and when everybody thinks it's a bluff, then he goes in. That's how you do it. And in this case, once the number cleared 100,000, it was obvious this was going to happen. When the troops were left in Belarus after they finished their war games with the Belarusian troops, it was on. And everybody had to admit it was going to happen when the medics showed up. When they knew they were going in, they knew they would need they'd need medics, they'd need field hospitals, because they were going to have wounded. That's the difference between a war game, when you bring those troops in. So the question was, why, the only reason he went into Ukraine, the story that's being told by, Aaron Mate, Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, Russell Brand, and Mersheimer, who's the guy who is the father of this stupid idea. And it is stupid. It's just genuinely dumb, because of the 97 agreement between NATO and Russia, where Russia signed a treaty saying it's okay if everybody joins NATO or nobody joins NATO. We don't care. Nations are sovereign. We agree. That after that point, I don't want to hear from. But in 1990, James Baker said something at a meeting that they took to mean whatever. All right, those countries didn't exist at that time. So Putin is in, I want to say 2012, they started really dealing with the fact they were going to have to rectify their demographic collapse. So in society, in a country, for your birth rate to replenish those people who've been killed or die naturally, you need a birth rate of about 2.1. Every person, in the country, every woman who gets pregnant, needs to have 2.1 kids. And the 0.1 is for infant mortality and premature deaths. And that's what you need. You need that little edge on your society to make sure that you're replenishing the dying population with enough people. And that's the generalized number. You need a 2-to-1 ratio, as far as pregnancies. Because you also got half the women, half men. So women have to come up with 2 people, right? That idea, right? Well, and since men can make use of multiple wombs, as it were, in the creation of people, and women only have one. So this ratio comes from women in this regard, geopolitically, strategically, and demographically. All right, so Russia's was about 1.2, somewhere around 2012. And they recognized this is a problem. Every country in Europe has seen a shrinking demographic as far as that. They've seen a birth rate of about 1.5 to 1.7. It's below the replacement rate. and they have aging populations, but not as, there's wiggle room. There's a, functionally in that statistic, there can be years that go up, years that go down in the 1.7 that will bring you over that 2.5 and then back down to whatever. In Russia's case, once you get to 1.2, you're done, son. And you got to do something. So they started doing a lot of what China's doing right now and is also failing at doing. They started paying women to have babies. You get like an $8,000 maternal credit to have a baby. And it worked for a short time. It boosted the number to 1.7, never crested over 2, and it has since receded back down to 1.5. They don't have the replacement population. It's not going to happen. Already, they have 144 million people. They have half the population of the United States and the biggest country on earth. Russia has 2 million males that will enter into military age over the next 5 years. The U.S. and NATO allies have somewhere in the order of 200 million. There is no point where Russia waits another month before trying to do any kind of military adventurism in this situation where they don't seize people and start having babies with the locals. This is why they're pushing back into the USSR, the old regions of the USSR. This is, in all honesty, this is the primary reason why Putin, why now? Because if they wait 3 years, it's not going to happen. They will not have the soldiers to do it. Ukraine has a higher replacement rate. And you can bet that the demographic shift... Whoops, my camera tipped there. The demographic shift that's happening in Russia that was in line with what was happening in Ukraine is not... Ukraine's going to be making babies after this is over. The Ukrainian nationalism is going to lead to a baby boom that is going to dwarf the birth rate in Russia. This is what they've caused. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. And my camera was tilting and starting to go someplace, and I was like, "Why is that stud?" Hi, how are you?
I started to feel like motion sickness for a second.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I can't focus.
I was like, where are you going? Yeah. Ukrainian boomers. Ukraine has had a pretty decent, compared to, say, Germany or France, their demography has been going up in the last couple of years, which was also a big fear. And why? Why did it go up? Because after 2014, the people of that country started feeling like this is going to be a real country. My country, I can raise a kid in this. We're not a puppet. And they started having children. They started being hopeful. They started sending their kids to school and college. And everybody with like half a frigging skill is leaving Russia in mass. The brain drain that's going on right now is absurd. And there is the interesting thing about like Russian demographics that I've just been fascinated with lately is Russian, what would effectively be like skilled workers versus unskilled workers. The pay grade between those two, including the fact that you pay for education, and they used to have an old apprenticeship system that's sort of left over from the Soviet system because basically they wanted people birthed into a job. Farmers stay farmers, miners stay miners, and that's how a Soviet system works. It has to. That you don't let people go to school. You assign them a job when they're a toddler, and you just funnel them into it. And if they're terrible at it, you put them deeper in the mine. If they're bad at it, you put them at the end of the assembly line. If they're, that's how they would solve for people who don't feel like doing that job. And then if they, after a while, you would just basically ratchet them up to the point where they're a dissident, and then you kill them. Because they become like, I don't want to do this crap. And they start reading, and you kill them for reading, right? That's the Pol Pot system. Anybody with
Amos
glasses.
in the chat said he's using the GOP's 3 objectives: keep them sick, stupid, and scared.
That's right. Yep. That's right. But that's been the plan for a long time. The problem with Putin is that he doesn't have a choice. He'd rather not have a stupid populace, but anybody who's smart has made for the border a long time ago. The fact that the oligarchs hide their wealth in other countries is indicative of the problem. China tried to solve that. China tried to fix that. They stopped letting people move their money out. So that's why, only Chinese dissidents have yachts. There are no Chinese billionaires with yachts all around the world. There's not a Chinese billionaire with a yacht parked in Italy that is known, right? And the idea that you're a Chinese millionaire or a Chinese billionaire is sort of absurd, because in our system, in our way of thinking, if you have $1 million, one of the cool things you can do is travel and spend that money however you like.
Yep.
Thank you. If you want to go to Italy and you're a millionaire in the United States, and you want to go to Italy and live there for 10 years and blow 800,000 of it, on a little villa and just spend all your money, you can.
Yeah.
If you're a Chinese millionaire, you're not allowed. If you start moving that money out, they will scoop you up and re-educate you. So during the break, we were talking about, and if you watch at infotainmentwars.com, or if you watch on Twitch, you could, we chit chat and say all the bad words that Johnny says during the show on air, out loud on the radio. We can say those during the break. So, but one of the things that I was discussing was the fact that the demographics of Russia are such that that Putin really has no choice but to invade Ukraine and start pushing towards Moldova, Lithuania, Latvia. All of the stands got to come under his envelope again. And Kazakhstan, arguably could be one of the worst for them. It's enormous. It's oil and gas rich. The new leadership was put in there by the old Putin puppet, and then was supposed to carry on that process, and then went to start locking up that guy's family members. Not exactly what you do when you're going to side with Russia against China in the oil and gas tug of war. If you're going to start being China's major supplier, because that's where most of the functioning oil fields and gas fields come from, especially right now, because currently oil and gas from Russia is sanctioned all over the world, but it's not from Kazakhstan. Right. The companies are, but then, they're finding ways around that currently. Well, this is even more reason for that to continue. Even more reason for Kazakhstan to become a bigger breakaway. And it has near the same economy size-wise. Obviously, it's a kleptocratic gangster monopoly, just like kleptocracy, just like Russia is, but it's nearly as big if you take out the financial sector, which is exactly what just happened in the sanctions worldwide. One of the most fascinating stories of this, Johnny Million, I don't know if you heard about this, the teachers union in Florida has over $300 million invested in Russia that it can't get out. Let's see, 300. Yeah, let me look this up.
Why was it over there to begin with?
Yeah. So Florida's pension fund is stuck holding $300 million in Russian investments?
Florida.
Public, yes. And again, folks, keep this in mind the next time somebody tells you it doesn't matter who's in charge. The Democrats and the Republicans are exactly alike. It's two legs in the same pair of pants. Nothing matters. It's all the Illuminati. We're all being run by lizards. They all drink human milkshakes. Adrenochrome. The next time they say this, go, I don't think the Democrats have been running the government of Florida this entire time during the period by which they thought, ooh, Russia, what a great place to make money. So, Democrats have been calling for divestment from Russia in these, and the teachers union, which has a lot of Democratic leaning folks in it, I would say, in most states. I don't know if it's true that way in Florida, but they were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then they went, yeah, about that? Russia's not allowing anybody to sell their stakes in anything.
Sure.
Much less in rubles or dollars. Also, Russia is about to default on their bond payments in the next week, which is something that's been, we've been talking about happening in China for the last year and a half after the Evergrande real estate collapse and all the ensuing smaller companies, and by smaller, most of them dwarf some of the largest companies in the United States. But they're like dominoes, they're falling through the sector. The real estate investments and real estate loans dropped by 31% from the previous month, which was already falling off a cliff.
Yeah, just from all the talk.
Yeah. There's a similar thing going on with Russia's bond market right now because they have no way to make money and they have to pay their bonds. Now, Ukraine is paying their bonds. Yeah. Ukraine has made all of their bond payments during this. All the loans that they've taken out over the years from governments, the World Bank, the hedge funds, anybody they've borrowed money for infrastructure, they're making those payments. Now, one of the reasons they are making those payments is they basically don't have a defense budget right now because we're giving it to them.
Mm-hmm.
If America could take a break from our defense budget for 3 years, oh boy, the things we could pay off. That, and by the way, we're not going to. Just get used to the idea, because the minute we stop spending all this money on weapon systems and the like is the day Iran, Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, and China form a pact to end democracy once and for all. Sorry, that's how it's going to work out. There is no utopia where if America would just stop meddling, everything could go back to normal. We would just get along like deer in the forest, right? So, DeSantis is, facing increasing pressure to, get this $300 million in investments that are linked to Russia out, and just not really moving on it, and I can't imagine why. Florida's Democratic congressional delegation last week urged DeSantis to immediately divest the Florida retirement system from Russian-owned or headquartered businesses. The call came in a letter asking DeSantis, in his capacity as head of the state's Board of Administration, to immediately divest the $300 million worth of investments in Russian-linked companies. Now, again, you can't. Sorry. You could sever that money. You could ask the federal government, because of this extraordinary nature, to give a grant to the pension systems of $300 million so that we can just cut loose those funds and just start from scratch. Because Putin's never, obviously they could file a lawsuit, go, if we ever get them back, we'll pay it back to the federal government. Just call it a day. Mm-hmm. But you could have done this in the second week of February. Heck, you could have even done it in the first week of the war. But DeSantis and all these Republicans were pushing the idea that Putin's not going to do this, and if he does, he probably should do it, and it'll be over quickly, and Ukraine has no shot, and this is just prolonging the inevitable. Ukraine should just, in the parlance of a Republican anti-abortion activist congressperson, Russia should just lay back and let it happen, because it's what God wants. By the way, Philip Ittner is going to be joining us in a couple of seconds. I want to take a break early, and then I'll bring him in on this if we could, so we'll have a little more room in the next break, if that's cool, Chicago.
Okay.
We'll go to break right now, and then I'm going to bring Philip Ittner. He's live in Lviv. I believe he's still there. He might be moving around. There's a lot going on. I don't know if he's played chess. We will find out in a second. He'll be joining us. He's in the green room, coming in a second. Yeah, so we'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Woo-woo.
Philip, can you hear me? Philip, can you hear me?
Philip, can you hear me?
I don't see him in there, so... Mike, wait. Oh, he went away. Maybe he'll come back. Dial back, Philip. We'll get you in here. Thanks, Chicago. Imagine, if you will, a state of affairs currently, where the United States had followed the lead of Jimmy Carter, putting solar panels on the roof of the White House, where technology, as fast as it has advanced in solar in the last 5 years alone, if it had been working at that pace since 1976. And then imagine, if you will, the electrical car advances. Had the electric car not been pulped in the early 90s, and that technology had been worked on all along.
I don't know if you want to wait to answer this. I'm sorry. This Templeton Zarat from the chat.
Yes,
has a good question, saying when countries fund Ukraine, is it a loan they eventually pay back?
In some cases, but that's a good one worth talking about. Philip, can you dial back in? He was there. Hopefully
he'll be right back, Hal.
Okay, cool. Hold on one second. I'll just go to me. Fine. I'll just be by myself here. That's fine. I can do it. I can be by myself. It's fine. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up. Support the show. See this? Nope, that's fine. I thought he was online, and he'll join us again, hopefully. Everybody, Philip's in the chat. Tell him to call back in if he can. And it's just me. It's all right. It's like the old days. I'm very impressed. Johnny will be back with us in just 1 second, and Philip will be calling in, I believe. He was calling in. I hope all's well. We had him on the line, and then we lost him. Hopefully we're okay. There wasn't an air raid siren or anything. It is an active war zone. So, yeah, there he is. Okay, he's joining us. Phew! I was getting nervous. There he is. I'm going to add him to my screen left just because he's here. Hey, there he is.
Sorry about that.
No, it happens. Fear not. Johnny stepped out for a second, so this is kind of perfect. Everybody, Philip Ittner, everybody. Philip's in Lviv.
Also, sorry, I'm only here for your last 45 minutes, but it was for a very good reason. I was in a meeting.
Okay. Hold on 1 second.
People that I can't tell you about, but...
Yeah, okay.
information was exchanged.
Chicago's not getting audio from you, so give me 1 second, and I will forward that to them. Hopefully, we'll be able to remedy that in 1 second. And in terms of, we will get a kind of a major update on things there. I was discussing during the last little bit, and let's see, both of these should be on. Can you check for me, Philip, and say something?
Yep, sure. Test 1, 2, 3. I'm seeing levels on my side.
Okay, then let's see. There's like we'll go back to this business. That should be a little better. Yeah.
Helpful. Is that any better?
Yep, it's great. So, one of the issue though is that they won't hear me. So I will fix that and just you can't hear me. They won't be able to hear me in this, but we'll work it out. I'm figuring it out. We're getting it. We're covered. Okay, cool. So, and Johnny Million's joining us back in 1 second. I will bring everybody in. It's just a gathering of everybody. There we go. And I've got Philip in here. Oops, hold on. I've got to put Philip in this picture real quick. And then there we go. Philip's joining us now in Lviv. Just came from a meeting he can't talk about, which is very exciting. That in and of itself.
I like that.
Yeah, it's very impressive. But give us an update, if you can, on the circumstance that's going on right there, in Lviv. What's the generalized demeanor? I know people are coming back into the country as the Russians are pulling out. There's traffic jams going back to Kiev. Catch us up. Philip, can you hear? Yeah. Oh, and that's funny. Now I don't hear him. That's fun. Hold on. that's on my end. Hold on 1 second. We will figure this all out. It's going to be a good time. I'm not worried about it. Okay, there we go. Go ahead. Oh, no. I'm not hearing Philip all of a sudden. There he is. I hear Johnny.
That's me.
Yep. I just don't hear Philip. So we'll work on that. It's a coordination of things. It's a cacophony of craziness. So do me a favor, Philip. Hang up and call right back. That seems to be one of the issues. It might just be the weird mix of internet stuff that occurs. So do me a favor and just hang up and call right back on the service, and we'll get you in here.
How about that?
Oh, look at that! I heard that. There you go.
Okay.
That's something.
Okay. It was my headphones.
I see. Gotcha. Okay, good. All right. That's, it's always an issue. It's not
always
nothing
the little things. Yeah.
That's right.
Small
Nothing to be issue.
All that fun stuff.
There you go.
Nothing to be ashamed. Happens to everybody.
Happens to every man at our age. Okay. But go ahead. So catch us up on.
Okay. So because I'm only catching you at the end here. I'm just going to tell you, lots of people coming back. Lots of traffic going out of Lviv. I have people that have come here today from the east, and they reported to me that it's just a line of green vehicles, meaning kind of that army green, headed in the other direction, going east from Western Ukraine.
Right.
A lot of refugees coming back. A lot of people feeling that it's safe enough to come back to various locations within Ukraine.
Right.
So a lot of that's going on. And there's a weird atmosphere in town. There's one of the reasons I'm late, Hal, is because I was having dinner with a contact of mine that I can't. It's going to sound more conspiratorial and nefarious than it is, but it's basically just journalism 101. I don't want to burn a contact by telling you who I was meeting with.
Right.
But it's somebody who knows what's going on militarily here. And was imparting an awful lot of information to me that there have been a lot of things going on in Lviv that I was heretofore not aware of.
Okay.
This town is much more active in terms of coordinating the international military response than we had known. There have been people in this town for quite some time that thankfully the Russians didn't know, or if they knew, they decided not to do anything about it,
or couldn't,
who have been coordinating, especially after Bucha.
Right.
Bucha was a moment, I think, when the international community decided, okay, enough is enough. We can't just ignore the war crimes that are happening outside of Kiev and around the country. And the fact that it is now on every screen and on every front page means we have to respond. So there have been people in this town for longer than I was aware of it, but certainly since Bucha, that have been coordinating the international response and the best way to give the weaponry to the Ukrainians that they're going to need to do what they have to do. And in addition to that, are aware of the situation on the Russian side of the equation more so than we thought we knew. And the story on the Russian side of things is far worse than even what is in public, in the public sphere.
In terms of the damage to their forces and deaths,
their unit cohesion, their command and control, their communications. In fact, this isn't something I learned at this meeting that I was at, but it's something I wanted to mention to you. I don't know if you saw the press briefing from the spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, yesterday.
Oh, yes. Right. She was talking about how you can't make borscht and they had to invade Ukraine because of cookbooks.
Yeah, they wanted. They wanted. Well, not. I mean, she has since said, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has since said, "Oh, it was dark humor. She was employing dark humor."
That's like Trump saying he was being sarcastic about. Right. I don't know why it would be Russia. Right.
Yeah, I know Maria Zakharova.
Okay.
I've known her. I've known her personally since the Iranian negotiations. When I was working for Al Jazeera America, I was their foreign correspondent.
Wow.
I was in Geneva when Lavrov was their point man when it came to negotiations for the nuclear treaty, the disarmament treaty.
Ugh.
So she was his travel press secretary, and
that
she
poor
would
woman.
She would hobble around in 8-inch stiletto heels and a micro miniskirt, and there was a reason. Sergei Lavrov is lots of things, but he's a bit of a playboy.
Just yuck. And
there's so much.
I mean, yuck. But I always pity women in those situations where you're either or in life just sucks. But anyway, so she. For those of you,
we could talk about
no doubt,
that, but that's not relevant to the point.
Right.
What's relevant to the point is that I saw that press conference yesterday,
right,
and I heard her talking about this whole Borscht thing. And the only reason I mentioned the fact that I've known her since what was that? The negotiations were in like 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
2011, 2012, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how long I've known Maria Zakharova.
Right.
So I know her speech pattern.
Yes.
I don't want to say she was clearly drunk, but there was something off about her speech pattern, her cadence, everything. If the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is impaired and is still conducting press conferences, there is something very, very wrong in the state of Denmark.
Yes, everybody's hammered. Everybody's a mess. Everybody's collapsing.
And they're all falling apart. They're all collapsing. I have some anecdotal stories that I could tell about people that I know in Russia that are all starting to realize, we might be the bad guys, and also we may be losing really, really bad.
Which they are. Which brings us to that topic. Let me see. We got 3 minutes before we have to hit a break. So the effective retreat of Russian forces from the western part of the country and the abandonment of the attack on Kiev, which seems to be the case here, and the idea that they're pulling back so they can hit the place with a tactical nuke, or they're just going to send bombers in, or any of that garbage, is, I think, nonsense. And I think Russia's only option in their mind is this was always a salami slice endeavor. We got a huge chunk of the eastern side of the country, and we're going to get this whole puffed out region that we've been fighting over for the last few years and secure that and declare that an autonomous region of our own, the areas around Donbass and Luhansk and the like. Which by the way, I don't think is going to happen. I don't think they're just going to be able to move into that area and say it's ours now, because I think the Ukrainians have had it. I think there's a very strong chance they're going to say, you know what, you can't have Crimea either. We're taking it back. I do think with the support of all the NATO countries and the United States, basically saying we'll give you as many arms as you could ever want.
Why am I here, Hal?
I'm sorry, but that's my theory.
You're there. You tell me. I'm teasing you because you're absolutely right, and we have 2 minutes. So I'm gonna just make a couple of really quick.
Well, 2 minutes and a half hour. It's not a huge rush. Remember, we're halfway through.
I know, but yes. I want to hit on that point because what Russia doesn't realize, and what I think a lot of people globally don't realize, and that includes people in the West and includes people in the States.
Yeah.
The difference now is that Russia doesn't get to decide the course of this war anymore.
Nope.
They are not in control. They don't get to call the shots. The Ukrainians do. And actually, to be fair, also, so does NATO. NATO is going to use Ukraine to kneecap Russia in a way that we never could have done if we'd gone directly at them.
Right.
This is catastrophic for them. And and no matter what they think is going to happen with the rest of this war, they're not in control anymore. They've lost the narrative. They've lost the ability to dictate.
They've lost the moral high ground. They've lost their tactical advantage. They've lost they've lost the illusion of military superiority, and that's the worst. That's more than
Just wait. All this talk of it being like a war of attrition and there being a static war like there was in Donbass. I have spoken to some people within the Ukrainian military and within Ukrainian sources, and they said, nope, we did that. We did that for 8 years.
Yeah.
Where we sat on a demarcation line, and we had this war of attrition kind of thing, this constant, like, we're not going to do that again. This time we're going to take it to them. We're going to push them out of X, Y, and Z. I won't go into full details, but you can take a stab at it.
Yeah.
And you won't be wrong.
Thank you. I appreciate your belief in me.
They've done that. The attitude I'm getting from the Ukrainians is we did that for 8 years. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Not going to do it again.
Right.
This time we're not going to sit in trenched warfare lines of demarcation. This is going to be mobile.
Let's hold that thought for a second. Let's take a break, because I'm curious about that move. I think that is the biggest story moving forward, is the fact that the Ukrainians are going to be on the march. We'll be back with Philip Ittner's live in Lviv, which is a mouthful to say. That's a lot of L's and V's in a very short order.
I like it.
Johnny Million is...
I'll change my name for you.
Yes, Johnny Million is checking in on the chat on infotainmentwars.com and is able to relay chat questions and the like to Philip as well. So we'll have more of those when we come back. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, I'm sorry I bugged you yesterday on your podcast so much, but I was having a tough day.
I understand.
I'd been in a round table with I do it as a favor to a former colleague of mine who's retired, and we went through the wars together. And so if he asks, I give.
Sure.
And he wanted me to do a round table with his senior citizen community, and I knew it was going to happen. But of course it happened. There was a certain percentage of them who get their news from AON and Fox and all the rest of it. And so they started spouting all this stuff about how Bucha, is totally understandable because, saying to my friend, you and I have been through combat. You know what combat's like, and in the fog of war, sometimes civilians get caught up and stuff. And I listened for a little bit politely because I didn't want to get my friend kind of, I didn't want to chuck my friend under the bus. But after a while, I had to stop him. and just
Right.
say, no, you got to stop. You're spouting GRU talking points.
Yeah.
It was not battle. What happened in Bucha was not battle.
They knew it.
They occupied that territory, and they started dragging people out of basements. It was systematic execution style killings, and so I knew it was going to happen, but when it happened, and then to have that happen on the heels of Kramatorsk, I had a bad day yesterday. So I saw you on your podcast. And I was like, I need to vent. Please let me go.
Yeah, no. And I was on the other setup. I'm not, that's why I moved out here so we could get you, because it's easier for me to use Ecamm to get you. Well, I will give you that outlet. We will do that. And by the way,
come on.
Stuttering John has been reaching out. I think
I spoke
for you.
to him. I did it.
Okay,
I
good.
Did it. I did John with Major Ojeda, which was a real.
Yes, he's great. Yeah. Oh, great. Excellent. Cool. Because I've been trying to.
Because he was military, we could talk on certain topics. That
I've been doing my due diligence behind the scenes, Phil. Just making sure I'm trying to find outlets for you.
I know.
That's what I've been doing.
Trying to get out there as much as possible because
I know.
I'm trying to debunk all this junk.
Yeah.
That the Russians are spewing out. I'm still working on my magnus opus, but it's printer be darned at this point. So I'm going to publish soon, and then once I publish, I'm going to the Capitol.
All right.
I'm staying for the duration, Hal. Because despite what you are hearing from some outlets, including some very reputable people who may be saying, and I mean that from the administration and from the DOD, they may be saying it for public consumption. They may be saying it because they're coming at it from a different direction. This is not years. This is not going to be years.
No, I agree.
This is going to be months.
I agree.
It's going to be a rout. It's going to be a rout.
It is. I agree. Unlike,
even I this week have been holding meetings again with people that I can't tell you about, but you're just going to have to trust me on this one.
Yep, I do.
I've been meeting with.
Hold on. Welcome back to the show. Philip and I are obviously still in conversation as we do during the break, just kind of ongoing. And Johnny Million is looking at. That's okay. No. It's because there's so much to talk about.
Sorry to the audience.
No. So the one of the things I'd like to address is what we were touching on during the break, though, for the audience on the radio, is this idea that after in 2014, when Russia basically saw itself losing space because Yanukovych was on the way out, Poroshenko was not going to be on their side, and then ultimately Zelensky would be the full transition into Ukraine moving up and being a European country that can stand on its own 2 feet, equal to, in many ways, Germany, France, and other countries eventually because of its resources, because of its people, because of its history. It would definitely reach into that Putin had sort of in his own mind, he had to undercut that as much as possible. Keep him out of NATO by creating a border dispute and just fight and keep that mess going. That'll keep him out. Once this started, though, we're now in a much more all or nothing situation. And tell me about the feeling about the isolation of and the dismissal of from the world stage Russia as a country.
It's devastating. Devastating. I mean, I have so many Russian friends, and I love them dearly as individuals.
Okay.
And I don't want to go too deeply into some of their personal.
Hold on 1 second. Same kind of audio issue that we had. It's so much fun when Chicago goes on this thing. There we go. Hopefully that'll get it now. Can you check for me, Philip?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
1, 2, 3. Sorry.
Cool. No, it's okay. It's just the nature of so many levers.
Hey, Cisco, Pilholo, yes, they do in numbers that we don't even know about, and it will be shocking when it comes to play. Cisco was asking about Harpoon missile systems. Yep, they got them. Officially, we know from open sources that the Brits have delivered them. What we don't know in open source, and which I can't really talk about in a great extent, is just how many Harpoons they have.
Right.
But we're gonna find out pretty soon.
Well, one of the things that Blinken mentioned and that has been, common knowledge is that we're looking in the area of, they started with initially an order of 10 javelins for every tank the Russians have, not in country, in their arsenal. That includes tanks that are parked somewhere halfway across Siberia, that are in crap shape. This week on my live stream, and I think you might have seen it, Philip, there was a picture of a tank that was left behind.
The barrel?
And the barrel on it was completely rusted out. This was something that had been sitting for maybe a week. It had been blown up, but the damage to it that stood out to me was not that the tracks were blown off, not that the top had been hit with a javelin missile, but the barrel itself was rotten, effectively. Yeah. In many ways, just like the tires on the troop transports and the food transports and the fuel transports that have been breaking down all across Ukraine. Because, and this is what I would like you to speak to in terms of the corruption problem that has always been alleged about Ukraine, but Russia has in spades. Because it seems like somebody is siphoning money off into their own pocket from the deep-sixed elements of the Russian military that they never thought they were going to use. And this caught them off guard.
Yeah. They really thought that they were going to stroll in here. They had no idea how hard the Ukrainians had been training. I mean, even to the point of the Ukrainians were so prescient about what was going to happen that they rotated their entire army. Their entire military was rotated to the front, so that every single Ukrainian unit at least had some time hearing shots fired in anger and knew what it was like to be in combat. And they purposely rotated their entire military, their entire land forces, territorial army, professional army, all the rest of it, to spend at least some time at the front. So when this war happened, when shots started getting fired, they didn't freak out. But on the other side, the Russians used the same doctrine that they've always done, which is in the build-up to a war, you just put an army out in a field and let them sit there. And that's why they had rotted tires. That's why they have guys running around in tennis shoes instead of boots. That's why they were left out to the elements for months when that that period that we've talked about so many times, in that kind of like, no, they're just exercises. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. And they just left them out in a field. Well, that's fine if you can support them. Like we build 10 cities. Mm-hmm. We built 10 cities in the middle of a desert. If Russia did that with the same doctrine that they employed in the build-up to this invasion, and left a bunch of soldiers, if we had left a bunch of soldiers out in the desert in Kuwait in the run-up to the invasion of Iraq, they would not have performed nearly as well as they did. And say what you want about that war, our troops were ready to go when it was time to kick off.
All of them, all the time. The readiness of the U.S. force is extraordinary worldwide.
Yeah, whereas the Russians just left them out in a field. And so when they said, okay, it's go time, they were like, we've been sitting in a rotten field for 3 months. Mm-hmm. Everything is falling apart. And that was just the initial, that was supposed to be their shock troop element.
Right. That was shock and awe. That was their Donald Rumsfeld was telling their George Bush that it's going to be awesome. Couple of days, and they're going to people are going to be sticking flowers in our barrels and glad to see us. They're going to greet us as liberators. Remember that stupid crap? Yeah, they fell for it too.
There were some. I was embedded with the U.S. military during the invasion of Iraq.
Right.
There were an awful lot who were like, "Yay, save us from Saddam!" And then a year later, we're like, "Hey, you left all our buildings blown up, and there are all these crazy jihadis and criminals. Can you bring some order to this, please?"
Which they did, right? And that's absolutely when we shifted and why it became a long haul. That is the difference between the U.S. in Afghanistan for all of its flaws,
or Iraq,
or Iraq, and Russia in Afghanistan. Because Russia in Afghanistan, again, leveled half of all cities and villages. They killed people in all the other ones, but 50% of the cities and villages in Afghanistan were destroyed, leveled to the ground when they came in. And this is the same strategy they were going with in Ukraine. They have learned nothing not since 2014, since the Afghanistan war in 1979.
We look at the difference between a town like Kharkiv
Yeah.
or Mariupol and look at Baghdad or Basra. You can say what you want about the way the NATO conducts a war, but look at the before and after shots of Baghdad after the American invasion, before the American invasion. We hit what we intended to hit, generally. Now, I'm not going to get into a whataboutism or a equivalent argument, but at the end of the day, we don't flatten entire apartment blocks and entire city blocks of, thousands and thousands. We don't just cluster bomb places. We don't,
Yep.
Again, I don't want to go into an equivalency argument.
Well, and we don't. By the way, increasingly,
look at what the Russians did.
Right, we don't increasingly because the American people won't put up with it. There may have been a period where the McNamaras of the world or the Kissingers of the world thought that's a completely reasonable strategy. And there may have even been people in the military and others who were looking at the threat, and it was so ratcheted up in their mind that they thought that's a reasonable response to have. In World War II, for example. But since then, since Vietnam, there has been, the American people have no appetite for that kind of stuff. We just do not. And as much as, the Dick Cheneys of the world would have rathered we did, and that we were all get a flutter about shock and awe, we didn't, and we don't. Whereas the Russians don't care if the Russian people...
they haven't heretofore, but I think they're starting to, because I'm starting to hear from Russians that they are starting to twig to the fact that, one, this isn't going well, and two, that their forces have been not been acting all that honorably.
Right.
They have filled their military, and these are just conscripts. We've talked about this before, so I won't go into great length, but we have talked about how their conscripts are basically just thugs they take off of the streets of like provincial towns who have nothing better to do than like burn tires and drink vodka in the middle of the day and all that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of life and future.
If you want to know who they are, go watch Russian gang street fights.
Exactly.
There's videos upon video.
And they filled their minds. They filled their minds with so much of this, like everybody's a Nazi thing, that they are going into these villages of 2, 3, 5, 10,000 people even, and they're going in and they're saying, "Okay, bring us your Nazis." And these villages are going, "We have no idea what you're talking about." And so, instead of going, "Hey, maybe there aren't Nazis here," they're saying, the entire village is hiding their Nazis. Therefore
they're Nazis.
Complicit. And so they started killing a bunch of people, and it's just nuts. And I want to get to Johnny's questions because I love it, and I'm so sorry it's truncated, but I had to have that meeting. But I just want to reiterate the point that I was making during the break there, so that your larger audience hears. Whatever you are hearing from the Department of Defense or even the administration, and I'm not saying that they're lying. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there's a difference in messaging that's coming out domestically within the states than what I'm hearing here. The idea that this is going to be a long war and this is going to be a protracted war, that's not going to happen. This is going to be a quick war. It's going to be a mobile war. The Ukrainians refuse to fall back into a static position where they're fighting a war of attrition. That's not going to happen. And because of the way things are on the ground here, the Russians don't get to dictate how this thing goes. The Ukrainians will. So
let's take a break.
A lot more quick and a lot more violent and kinetic.
Yeah, the next couple of days are probably going to be some of the highest casualties of the war as they push into the eastern areas, and it's going to be.
When this kicks off, it's going to be nuts.
Yes, and there's a reason for that, and it involves avoiding nuclear war. And I will talk about that as well on the other side of this break when we come back, and we'll have some questions from the chat that Johnny will bring up. You're listening to the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Now with 100% more, Johnny Million and Philip Bittner. We'll be back.
Had to go to that meeting, Hal. Sorry.
No, I'm for it.
It's worth it. The things I have been learning in the last week are really...
Well, when the ambassadors from everywhere moved back, when they receded back from Kiev into Lviv, it not only gave them, another strategic place to all gather, but it also allowed them to have sort of a gathering point for logistics closer to the border to bring stuff in and oversee it.
Not only that, but if some high-ranking officer or member of a Ministry of Defense from whatever NATO nation or Department of Defense wanted to come into Ukraine so that they could actually meet with Ukrainians. It's an hour's drive to the border. They just go to Poland. They pop over here. They've got people already in Lviv that set up the meeting. They pop over for an hour, 2, 3, whatever it takes.
Yep.
They get a download direct from the horse's mouth. They go back. They get on the other side of the border. They go back to their capitals and they go, this is the wish list.
Yep.
This is what we need to be doing. This is what we need to be paying attention to. And this is how we can directly assist them. This is the intel we can give them, the satellite imagery we can give them. This is the targeting systems that we can give them. This place has been a lot more active in the war than I was even aware of up until about 2.5, 3 weeks ago.
From a logistics standpoint, it makes sense to be the pivot point with the rest of NATO and Europe and everybody else who's giving like there's because the other thing is, as much as NATO gets a name check on all of this stuff, there are non-NATO countries that are contributing as much as some NATO countries, if not more, because even though they're not part of this particular treaty alliance, they're aware of the threat that Russia poses. Thank you. And know that it has to be dealt with, and it's left unchecked.
Now,
it's horrifying.
I'm not a walking, talking crystal ball, and the whims of war and the winds of war can change, at the drop of a hat. So I'm not speaking gospel. I'm just telling you with the information that I'm aware of.
Yep.
It's not
welcome.
the way
Welcome.
the Russians think.
That's right. Welcome back. We can't not talk during the breaks because there's so much going on. Philip is still with us. Johnny, what questions do we have in the chat room for?
I've got some questions. Well, what's great is that Phil organically answered one about the Harpoon missiles, so that was pretty cool. That was from Carla Lessie. David Fisher's asking, can you ask Phil what American independent contractors would be doing in Ukraine?
Independent contractors, in terms of military independent contractors, they may be doing things like actually taking like literal wish lists. I mean, if they're Raytheon or if they're Lockheed Martin, they might be, or whatever it is. They might physically be here going, hey, do you need night vision goggles? We'll sell them to you at cost. That sort of thing. Do you mean military contractors in the sense of like Blackwater guys? I haven't seen a lot of those. They may be here. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if somebody's doing that, but not in any significant numbers. They don't need to be here. Again, the Ukrainians are going to fight this war on their own, if for a variety of reasons, not least of which is because they don't want Russia to have the narrative that they're just puppets. And that it's really so America is and NATO is they're going to give them the guns, they're going to give them the weaponry, but it has to be the Ukrainians that do it, and the Ukrainians are like, okay, sure.
Right. There's also there have been foreign fighters who have folded into the Ukrainian military. They're allowing people to come in, and they're and so there is some element where mercenaries or which is the rough and tumble word for these contractors could come in in mass as a group and be sent in one particular place as we're just foreign fighters who are here to fight the Russians, when in reality they are actually they're going to be wearing Ukrainian uniforms, they're going to be given Ukrainian kit, but they might be sent in for other missions, and that's possible.
Yeah, they might also be here under the auspices of being contractors, because then they get to wear civilian clothes.
Right.
But really, they're they're still reporting to somebody in Langley,
right,
at the Pentagon. They're
they might be there.
Right?
They might be there. They might be there just flying drones. They might literally be there in a.
I was military intelligence for 25 years. I retired 6 months ago, and I just happened to be here as a contractor.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. What are the odds? Right.
I believe you 100%.
Let's grab another question, Johnny.
Sure. Sharon is asking, what's to stop Ukraine from hitting Russian cities in retaliation?
I mean, nothing. Not really, except for the fact that I think the Ukrainians would only do that in a strategic way. I don't think they would try and take territory. They might try and take. If you'd have said this to me even a month ago, I would have said you're crazy. But they might try and take back Crimea. I would have said a month ago that the Russians would fight to the death for that because of the Black Sea
Because it's
Fleet.
the lifeblood of the country, right?
Again, they might not have a say in the matter.
Yep.
But as far as like going into, say, Rostov or Volgograd or some of these oblasts, these states that border Ukraine, there's nothing in it for the Ukrainians. Again, this goes back to something I have said since the very beginning, since we started talking all those months ago, and when I was in LA. This is all about Ukraine finally saying enough is enough. We are not a thoroughfare. We are not a crossing point for you to traverse through us on your way to fighting the empire that you really want to fight. And so you're just using us as a crossroads. We're done with that. We're not going to do that anymore. We're a country. We have a language. We have a culture. We have a history. We're a nation. That's
We also
talk about.
Yes, and also, as of 2012, have oil and gas deposits discovered both in the Black Sea on the southern coast near Odessa and inland in the eastern part of the country past the area where Russia had taken it, and in the mainland area south of Kiev that is equal to the oil and gas deposits in Russia. Yeah. Beyond the fact that Russia can't get its oil and gas to market, which is the conversation I don't think anybody's really having, and why Germany finally came around to win. Oh, wait a second. The discoveries made in 2012 and the Institution of Western Technology get that stuff out of the ground and to market on behalf of the Ukrainians after the companies like Burisma were broomed of all their corruption by, weirdly enough, Rosemont Seneca and the son of Joseph R. Biden coming in there and going, you're going to spend the money where we say you're going to spend the money. I'm here as a shepherd for this cash. You're not going to take it out and give it to Russia. All of a sudden, Europe's 30% of their oil and gas they get from Russia, they could get all of it from Ukraine alone.
Yeah. There's a couple of things about that. Firstly, I think that is an absolute valid point, and that there are nuts and bolts economic reasons, and there are assets and there's material. But the very fundamental thing about this war is the fact that these people, for the first time in their history, are going to have and I can't overstate it enough. It's not possible to overstate it. These people have a home now.
Yeah.
They have a home. I mean,
that's right.
I know we can all kind of relate to that on a personal level, but magnify that to a nationwide level. These people have a country now. They've been trying to do this for 500 years. They have a home.
Yes.
I mean, that touches all of us, I would think. I mean, that's a human desire to have a home, to have a place that you can call your own. And that's what they're doing here. Yeah, they're a huge breadbasket. Information, like information technology and all the rest. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that brain drain that's coming out of Russia right now, that ultimately they come back here, because this place is going to be a dynamo.
I agree.
It's going to be amazing. I tell you what, people were teasing me about this at dinner tonight, but they were. I said to them, "Now's the time actually to invest.
Right.
Get in now. Get in now while the market's low. Go buy your second home on the Odessa coast.
Right.
Nobody's doing that right now because nobody knows
afraid. Right. Because you can't get insurance. But
But if you're speculative, you can get it on
land. Right. Yeah. It's the future of Airbnb in Odessa is hot. But what I would like to say is, in relation to what you're saying, the idea that they have a home. Partly the reason you feel that is because the country you call home has a future, has potential, has everything you would need to have a functioning country. Like, they're not, just because Afghanistan has been freed from the Western oppressors, the people who are associated with the Taliban aren't like, finally, we have a home. It's none of the same feelings. Not even close. The 12 tribes there are still fighting. They're going to be fighting forever. It's ridiculous. The same thing is true of sort of Persian Iran. Persian Iran, the root of Iran that still exists. Those people, if they ever broke free of the mullahs, would have that feeling the way the Ukrainians do. It would be much closer to that, because it's a resource-rich country with a lot of tourism and a lot of potential and a lot of intellectuals and a lot of culture that could once again be reintroduced to the world. And Ukraine has basically been going through that since the fall of the Soviet Union. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, and it's something they've been trying to get for 500 years. Now that they have it for this long, one of the longest period of times in their history, they're not going to let it go. I'm looking at the clock. I'm realizing we're running out of time.
Yep.
One thing, I am not a spook. I am not a spy. I sometimes speak like it because I'm very careful about my contacts, and as a journalist, I don't want to
in a war zone.
So I don't want to burn my contacts. So that's why I kind of speak ambiguously sometimes. So I'm careful about that. And just as we wrap it out, Johnny, is there another question?
Yeah, we got one more from Dr. 13. In your opinion, is there anyone in the U.S. media who's reporting on Ukraine accurately? Or maybe who's the best?
I mean, boy, that's hard to say. I mean, Simon Ostrovsky is a guy that you want to watch on PBS NewsHour. Terrell Schwab is a great guy. Terrell's back in the States, and he's doing MSNBC now. He's been coming here as long as I have. Of course, Malcolm Nance. Lots of people. But in terms of networks, Richard Engel's pretty good over at NBC. I know a lot of people at CNN who are very good on the ground here. But, corporate media is corporate media. There's a reason why I'm not working for them anymore. So, take your information where you can get it.
I enjoy Operator Starsky. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a Ukrainian.
I know of him.
He's a Ukrainian soldier who's been doing updates every single day since it started. He does a daily vlog from battle zones.
There's a guy that Malcolm Nance turned me on to, Ilya Polyonik. I'll try and get the name and
okay. Yeah, tweet it to me and I'll send it out to folks.
Kate McCucci, because I don't have time this month.
That's right. Nope, we were out of time on that one. And we're at the end of the show. Philip, thanks for being with us. We greatly appreciate it.
I had to go to that meeting.
No, we get it. I'm glad you were there. I look forward to hearing more of it. How about Monday morning on the regular show, on my Monday morning show, you could come on and be a full guest for the morning show. We can schedule it now, and we'll do that.
Do you want to talk a little bit after we go off air?
Yeah, after we leave the show, people want to drop in at infotainmentwars.com and Twitch. We got to go. Everybody on WCPT, we will see you very, very soon. We'll see you next week. We're here every Saturday. Thanks so much, and we'll see you then. Thanks, Chicago. Yeah, peace. Hold on, and I'm going to hang that up, and hopefully when I hang that up, audio doesn't go away all of a sudden. That's always the tough part. It's this, anyways, we'll stick around for a minute. Johnny, you got a minute? You got an extra 10 minutes in you, 15 minutes in you? I've got, because I know people still have questions, and it'd be great. You've been collecting them, so you might have still had those.
I don't have any more written down.
Good, okay.
Didn't tag me in anything
I
more.
have a couple of comments. Like Hal Vickery said, the money was going into the hands of the oligarchs, not the military, in regards to the gear on the ground. And I think that relates to my nuclear conversation earlier, is that let's say you're a military commander and you're siphoning money off. I brought this up on the live stream, and some people may know this, but you there's not really going to be a land war in your head. Putin talks about this shit, but it never happens. And then you start siphoning some money off. You're like, well, this money can go into my pocket. And you do it over the years, and it starts to build. And then it is, like as long as there's fresh stuff to send into Georgia, the occasional reach out in Kazakhstan to put down a riot, something like that. But you don't need a lot of gear for that. You just need a lot of dudes and guns. That's cheap. Guns, you're always going to have fresh guns and gear for them to run around in. You're going to have a couple of missile trucks to drive down the street for some sort of dumbass parade. And you're going to have the fancy trucks that'll get taken care of. Everything else sits in a fucking warehouse. Nobody's ever seen it. And so if you're siphoning money off and not paying it the upkeep on it, you get to pocket that cash. Well, how much do you think they're going to do that with the nuclear arsenal?
Terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, since we're off the air, fuck anybody who actually propagates GRU talking points and the idea that the Ukrainians.
Right. Oh, hold on. Right as you said that, your audio went dead. That's so funny. Hold on 1 second. Nope. I think it's just your earphones or something. You're quiet now, but I hear you. That's so funny. Hold on. Mute back. Johnny, can you... What happened? Did you get a message? Oh, he went away and he came back. That doesn't look like Philip at all. I'm just saying he's going to call back in. Johnny, you muted yourself, did you not? And
I did. I'm sorry. I was coughing.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay, so Philip's going to call back in a second, but his
trying to make it be like, oh no, the audio is fine, Hal, and you're like, yeah,
like everyone is gone. Okay, Phil will be back. There he comes. Here he comes back in. Hold on, I'll bring him back in. We should be fine. Phil, there he is.
I am just not able to swear. I guess it's a sign from the gods.
That's right.
Yes,
fucking hell! What's wrong with you, you bastard? So
I'll keep it deep. But anyway, anybody who is telling you, anybody who's supporting GRU talking points, this the argument that came out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, was it last night?
Mm-hmm.
It was last night. I was on with, who was I on with? I was on with KNX in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And literally right before I came on air, I saw this announcement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because I monitor them in Moscow. Mm-hmm. And the argument that they were putting forward that the Ukrainians had actually shot the train station themselves,
right? Because
they hate Donbass, they hate the people in the Donbass so much that because they had collected at a train station, the Ukrainians had taken the opportunity to, I guess, kill people who were fleeing the Donbass, which they hate because they were from Donbass, although they were trying to flee Donbass, and that's why the Ukrainians killed their own people.
Right. It's like Jimmy Dore's bullshit about, and Aaron Monte. 14,000 deaths because of Ukrainian shelling since the separatist regions broke off. I'm like, motherfucker, those are the people who got killed by the Russians there. They're wiping out Ukrainians. Proxies. Yes, the Russian proxies are brooming human beings out of that area.
Anybody who tells any of your listeners or viewers that Ukraine would do any of this to themselves, just to stick it to the Georgian, to stick it to the Donbass or to the Russians, it's lunacy. It's lunacy.
Yeah. That's a legit talking point that like they're just faking this.
Yes. Yeah, I mean they've been doing that all along, right? Yeah, they everything that comes.
I've seen a couple of streamers, live streamers, guys that come out when something happens. There's this guy, I won't say his name, but there's a guy up in Kharkiv who comes out and immediately starts saying, Zelensky is actually this puppet, and he doesn't even want to do it himself. He's being forced to do it by the Pentagon and
right.
Langley. It's just like, dude, shut the fuck up.
See, it's just and this is again, you and I have talked about Jimmy Dore's talking point on this, and he's not letting that talking point go. He's going to ride it to death. Like even though it proves a lie every goddamn day, every day that passes, it gets he digs himself deeper and deeper into this hole, and yet the argument is that the Ukrainians deserve what's happening to them, men, women, and children alike, because they're Nazi adjacent, because 9 guys in the Azov battalion in 2013 did a Nazi salute at a party, and so 44 million people deserve to be broomed from the face of the earth. It's frigging disgusting.
Leslie, it felt fucking brilliant. Thank you for asking.
For being able to swear. That's great. Yeah. It's so freeing.
I hope someday that people like Jimmy Dore are held accountable for the bullshit that they're saying right now. I know they probably won't.
Nope.
But it's reprehensible. It is incredibly damaging to morale. It makes me really, really angry because it come to this country, you jackasses, you morons.
Right.
Shut the fuck up.
These are so.
Talk to these people, and then you tell me if these are the kind of people that would kill one another. You know that theft. I can leave my laptop at a cafe table right now in this town in Lviv, and people won't steal it. And that's not because they're so good natured or whatever. It's because there is a sense in this country right now of like, I'm not going to fuck my fellow Ukrainian over because it's all hands on deck.
Right.
And I'm not going to, even to the point of like, I'm not going to steal your stuff because I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And also,
you might be helping. You might be some, yeah. You might like I might participate, in the undermining of it, right?
Exactly. So these people that say this kind of crap that the Ukrainians could do this to one another, I hope to God someday they get a comeuppance, but
no. They won't, except in their interpersonal lives. They will,
Well, they're sad people.
They will boil boil in the ocean of their own hatefulness.
We're both gonna tell, and I grew out of that, and I think you did too. I remember back in the day being a Gen Xer. I mean, if you watch reality bites nowadays, we were a spoiled bunch of pricks. We really were.
Right.
Gen X were a bunch of spoiled. Oh, I'm so angsty.
Right.
I do have one more question.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Ed's 3D Tech asks if I can ask Philip if GOP fundraising will drop because of Russian frozen assets.
You know what? In all seriousness, maybe. I mean, I don't know how many people in the GOP are beholden to Russia, but Russia spent the bang for the buck that they get by compromising a few GOP congressmen and women. You get a lot of return on that. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Look, I would not be surprised at all if there were members of the GOP that the GRU has a couple of naughty pictures of them, or even not just that. I mean, that's lascivious and all the rest of it. But I wouldn't be terribly surprised if somebody went to because this is what you do when you're cultivating an asset.
Right.
And I'm not a spy master or anything like that. Again, I'm a journalist. I'm not into espionage. But I spend enough time around spooks to know that this is one of the things they do. Is they go to you and they say, "Hey, we understand you're having trouble meeting your mortgage payments this month. Let me take you to dinner and maybe we can make an arrangement and you can, we'll make sure you pay your mortgage for the next 6 months. And then when you pay your mortgage for the next 6 months, at the end of the 6 months, they come to you and go, hi, my name is actually Vladislav, and the money that we've been giving you is coming from,
Right, from the Russian Secret Service, right? Yeah, yeah. Well, that the other aspect of it as well is that, and somebody brought this up in the chat room, the RNC was hacked, just like the DNC was hacked, except the DNC stuff came out, and the Russian stuff and the Republican stuff, I say a Freudian slip, the Republican stuff didn't. So they just held on to it. Yeah. I'm really sorry we didn't have a chance to do much more today. I would have liked to, but boy, the things that the meetings I'm having in the last couple of weeks, especially since Bucha, I think Bucha was a real big moment in this. Yeah.
Because I think it was when a lot of NATO states said, well, we can't sit this out anymore. We can't kind of do it half-ass. We're going to have to do it. And there have been people showing up in this town that I'm having meetings with that are telling me stuff I mean, it's not secret squirrel stuff. I mean, they don't tell me stuff that's classified because they don't want to lose their clearance. But they're bringing my attention to certain things that are, let's say, sensitive.
Well, one of the things that
it's going to go well for the Russians, and it's not going to be years.
Yes, agreed. The other thing is that the proxy war, the actual, the proxy war argument that a lot of people are making, that this is just the U.S. and NATO having a proxy war with Russia and using Ukraine as the chessboard to do it, is the opposite, by the way. It is Russia's proxy war with NATO that they started by doing this to Ukraine. So NATO didn't start any of this stuff. That's just garbage. And us supporting a country that's being attacked by somebody who wants to start a proxy war with Russia, with NATO and the rest of our allies, is a reasonable act by free-loving people. So it's just garbage. The whole, the aspect.
And in addition to that, the Ukrainians are all on board. They're like, fine, okay, if you want us to be the proxy for it, fine. As long as we get to have our country at the end of the day, then that's fine.
Which you do. It's the difference between being, the concept of a puppet state for the West or a puppet state for Russia is that eventually we take our hand out of your ass. The Russians never will.
They're not going to be a puppet state.
That's what I mean.
Puppet state. They're going to be a partner. They're going to be a full-fledged
That's
partner.
right.
And also, I mean, look, I know I keep coming back to this this point about how privileged I feel being here, about being a witness at the birth of a nation, and this being the 1776 moment. And I know it sounds trite, and I know it's a little over emotional, but I do love this country, so I do have that emotion within me. But I do feel, in many ways, I mean, like, look, there's that line out of Hamilton, which I know you think is overrated, but I like it a lot.
I don't think it's overrated. I think it's racist. But that's it. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. I'm even willing to give you that.
And anti-gay.
Or I'm willing. That's not the hill I'm willing to die on.
Understood.
There's a line in it when they're having the cabinet debate where they do it as a rap battle, and Jefferson says to the rap battle, you know, when we were up against death's door, when we were needed, we needed money and guns and ships and half a chance. Who gave us that? And Madison says, France.
Yep.
And in return, they didn't ask for land, just the promise that we would take a stand and stand against tyranny and all the rest of it. That's what's happening here. And we're France.
Yeah.
We're France, and we have a mutual enemy. Ukraine and the West have a mutual enemy, like it or not. I know we don't like to paint ourselves as being an enemy of somebody else, but Putin decided, and Russia a long time ago decided, many in Russia, decided that the West is the enemy. Okay, buddy, you want to pick a fight? You want to pick a fight, and there's this other country that only their greatest sin is the fact that they want to have an independent and sovereign nation.
Right.
Those two things align just fine. And if the enemy of my enemy, and I can help create a nation state and a free and independent Ukraine, and as a benefit, as a fringe benefit advantage, we get to take out one of the worst despotic, autocratic systems in the world, which is a massive malign player on a global stage. Okay.
Good. Yes. Also, I would like to say to anybody who doesn't know what Philip is talking about in this particular instance or hasn't had a chance to see Hamilton, more than likely your state has a Lafayette Street, a Lafayette Square, or a Fayette County, or a Lafayette County. And the reason it does is because there wouldn't be any counties at all if it hadn't been for Lafayette helping us. And specifically...
Or the Polish guy whose name escapes me starts with a P. I mean, go to Chicago. I mean,
Pulaski.
Pulaski. I mean, they have Pulaski Day in Chicago for a reason.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's an integral part of it. And again, which side wants you to just be your own country? Now, there's this idea that, we only want to do this so our industry can move in. Our industry can take them over. This basically industry in America are indistinguishable, and therefore our Exxon and Chevron are going to move into Ukraine and it doesn't. No. The Ukrainians still own that stuff. It's still theirs.
Yep.
And we're already doing that technologically in Russia. Exxon, Chevron, Russia's only able to get their oil and gas to market because of American technology, and maybe some of BP, some UK. I would give them one company in that regard. But Western companies are the way we get oil and gas out of Russia. So if it's equal, or that's the only reason we're doing it, then why would we give a damn if Russia ultimately took Ukraine? If all we're doing is going in there to exploit the oil and gas, well, guess what? We'd be doing that if Russia ran the joint. The point is the freedom of the people to make their own decision about who and what gets to come and do businesses in their country should be up to them. This is a war about sovereignty, and Russia started it.
Yeah, and I don't think in either Washington or Brussels, at least I certainly hope not, and I don't think they do. If they are under the impression that they can come to Kiev and tell Volodymyr Zelensky what to do,
right? No, well, no, and they aren't.
That's part of the point. That's part of the point of the Ukrainian independence movement is they have been a pawn in greater power struggles their entire history, and they're done with it. And that includes what? Have you heard some of the stuff that Zelensky's been saying about the West? He's been scathing about the West. They are not going to be puppets of anyone. They may be partners.
Yes.
They work in conjunction. They may want to join the EU. They may want to join NATO at this point. Again, that's something that I didn't think was ever going to happen, or indeed that I thought.
There's no way they don't after this settles out. There's no way they don't, because for their own safety. Even if Russia breaks into 3 countries, which is a very strong possibility, they're still going to be right on the border of the strongest part of Russia.
They are not going to be pawns. They are not going to be a puppet state. That is their entire history. Their entire history has been being a puppet state, and they're not going to do it anymore.
No,
Just stop.
and we
Stop.
we have no interest in them doing it any more than we go after. We try to make France a puppet state or Belgium a puppet state. We don't do any of that stuff. We have no. There's no purpose because everybody's
because of our relationship with the Brits. We kind of have a different kind of, there's a transatlantic kind of, and then there's that special relationship stuff that goes on. So we oftentimes use Britain as kind of like, hey, it's not just us that wants to go, or the Brits are going to come with us. And I say that as a British American citizen.
Well, and also the other way around too, because that's ultimately it was MI6 and and they're messing around in Iran. That caused a lot of that cascading effect that people talk about with the Shah and the like. That was not a U.S. endeavor. That was not a U.S. endeavor. But people have linked that forever. Now, what I would like to say, what I was talking about the nuclear aspect of things, is that if there is a version of this where the strong arm of Russia plays out militarily in Ukraine, and they're allowed to get away with this, allowed to salami slice a huge chunk off after this and retain control of it, which they aren't. What that does is that actually that raises the possibility of tactical nuclear warfare in both that part of the country to finalize a border area around the oil and gas fields north of it, and the use of tactical nukes in Georgia and Chechnya going forward. If Russia is pushed, if we create basically a mini version of the Cold War with this, where they get their ass handed to them by the Ukrainians in Ukraine, and they spend basically every dime they have, which is exactly what they're doing right now, and all their future, fathers, effectively, in this nonsense, which they seem hell-bent on doing, the chances of them, offering forward some sort of giant, nuclear affront to the world gets smaller and smaller by the day and not greater. And so that's crucial. Part of the reason why the rest of why all the NATO countries, other non-NATO countries, and the U.S. are like all in on us, beating Russia on this soil and pushing them back is because they seem hell-bent on spending every dime they have, every last dime they have, because they're running out of dimes really quickly, on this particular chunk of ground. And they will have no material ability to support any other tactical systems. And the other thing is ABM. ABM is dead. The anti-ballistic missile treaty, which we said, we have all these things that can shoot your nukes out of the sky. We're not going to park them near you so that we have mutual assured destruction. So we won't stop your nukes. Like with the technology we have, we could fire nukes at Russia. If they fired back, we could destroy theirs in the air. We have that technology. We do. But in the ABM treaty, to try and make nice so that Russia could enter into the world again and not ratchet this up into a battle, we've been saying we're not going to put ABM sites near you. We are absolutely going to have ABM sites around Russia from now on. There's no way that's not happening.
My whole issue with the ABM thing was when we started to do that in the late 90s, we gave the BS excuse that it was because we were afraid that the Iranians were going to get a nuclear weapon, when clearly we were doing it to counter Russia. So, I mean, the fact that we kind of handled ABM badly, I think.
I agree, but there was a predicate. The reason we handled it is because we were trying to play nice. We were trying to incorporate them back in. In 1997, they signed that NATO agreement because the idea was that they would eventually join NATO, and Russia would be a part of NATO in its pushback against.
Yeah, we would be partners with them, and we could play nice together.
That's right, against the stands and against Afghanistan and against Tajikistan and any craziness in Syria and Azerbaijan and that kind of stuff. We were worried more about that and oil being the key matchstick in the whole thing. That was terrible. And so we were like, maybe Russia on our side isn't such a bad thing, especially with the rise of China, because China was apparently at that point especially under the delusion that they exist in their current form without the West protecting shipping lanes and providing them with the predicate for the Belt and Road Initiative to exist at all. They somehow fell into the illusion that without Western industry and Russian and Ukrainian farms, that China would exist in its current form. And it cannot. There's just no way.
I also think we screwed up when it came to Putin, because we thought a lot of things about Putin that were wrong. And I actually, I know I've told this story, and I know you know this, but I was in Moscow.
There's new people watching. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I mean the apartment buildings. When the apartment buildings went up in Moscow as a predicate to allow him to go into Chechnya so that he could look like a strong man.
Mm-hmm.
I have been screaming ever since 1999 when he did that from the rooftops to anybody who would listen that this is not a guy that we can trust, because if he is willing to do that to his own people, eventually somewhere down the road, when things don't go well for him, which inevitably they won't, because he is going to rob the place blind, and eventually people are going to start to dislike it, he is going to need to find an external enemy.
Right.
To blame it on, so that his people will not have an open revolt. And I was saying that in 1999, and we never should have been as cozy to Putin as we were. We did it for immediate and medium term goals and objectives. Like when we went into Afghanistan, we wanted to use their base in Kyrgyzstan, in Kyrgyzstan.
Well, the illusion was, the idea is that in the West operates under this, this kind of naivete of democracy. That there is an effective naivete necessary to democracy. It's brand new on the earth. It didn't exist. Autocracy, dictatorship, theocracy, and monarchy, and slavery were the way of the world since humans started knocking boots with Neanderthals, and didn't stop until the West stopped it. The UK put blockades on slave ships. The United States fought a civil war over it. Up until that point, it was normal everywhere. It's still normal in a good portion of the world. The Russians and the
experiment, the American Revolution, these terms are not mistakes.
No, and the Russians and the Chinese are currently taking slaves. Do you understand? Like, genuinely, they are currently taking physical conscripts, forced fighters amongst their own people, and seizing the people from other countries. The Chinese are currently engaged in a genocide against the Uyghurs. They are wiping out people in an entire section of the country because they just want to use it as a nuclear testing ground.
The Russians treat their general population the way that they treated
as serfs.
The serfs, from the beginning of time. So
that's right.
Have I ever said to you one of the other things that I have a couple of these things that I like to say about comparing Russia and America and all the rest of it.
Right.
One of the things that I have said for many years about Russia is that when the fall of the Soviet Union happened, we in our hubris, and it is hubris because we really do genuinely believe that this is the idea of liberal democracy is just this thing that will take hold because it's just what human beings want. But it
won't do it automatically, and it takes yes, go ahead.
Right, and you have to push back against those guys who have vested interest in it not happening. But I have said for years that in our hubris of thinking that after the Soviet Union fell, that it would be our system that flooded into them. What actually happened was that their system of a kleptocracy and a mafia state bled into us. That is why we have, and we are going to have to, it's going to take years for us to do this, but we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to clean up the mess of all these guys that came over from the former Soviet Union.
One second. Stuttering John just texted me and literally took out my headphones. Like, that's hilarious. Hold on. That's so him.
Do have to bail. We did it an extra 25.
So, him.
Thanks, Johnny. I'm sorry it was so short.
That's
hope
so
you're doing
funny.
well.
He would do that. That's the one thing that causes this to happen. That's so funny. Johnny, you can hear him though, right?
Johnny is saying he can't.
Yeah, I can hear Phil.
Can you hear
yeah, hold on.
How can
You can,
hear
yeah,
Johnny?
you guys can
Johnny,
talk amongst
yes,
yourself.
the phone.
All of a sudden, I'm the
saying-
one that can't hear. That's hilarious. Hold on. Let me do this. Turn on the monitor. This kind of.
I hope you're doing well.
Go away. Jesus Christ. Hold on one second. I know what I'll do. Give me a second. There we go. I see. All right. I see something. Hold on. So funny.
Thanks, Tim.
Where is it? Good Lord. Oh yeah, like I can't. You guys can hear each other, but you can't. I can't hear you. Hold on one second. That's so funny. What a
How
weird
can you hear me?
drop off thing. Hold on one second.
You can't
In
hear
my
the
monitor, I'll
broadcast
turn
at
it-
all. Something disconnected.
There we go. Got it. Got it. Got it. Fixed it. Now I've got to put. I have to turn on. I'm going to be on Stuttering John's show at 1 o'clock my time. He's already scheduled it. I've already said yes, and then he's blowing up my phone asking me if I want to come on today. Yes, John, I'm on right now. You maniac.
Right.
He does this all the time. Anyway,
Tell him I said hi, Johnny Million.
I will.
All
right, I'm gonna bail now.
Okay. Yes, I'll let. Yeah. So,
I'm always game.
excellent. I will, Johnny. I'll let you go, and then I'll keep. Let's see. I'll bring on.
You know me. I'll gab for as long as you want.
That's right. All right. Bye, Johnny Million. See you later.
Johnny.
Okay. There we go. And let me put in. There you go. This guy, and I think I have. Yeah. All right. I have to put your Twitter handle back in there. Whoops. Hold on. Whoops. There we go. But yeah. So you're. Whoops. 1L.
No, I have an echo now. Oh, great.
That's okay. We'll fix it. Don't worry. It'll come back. Don't worry. That's temporary. Fear not.
Calling in from the Temple of Doom.
All right. It's the transfer over from the other thing, so it just takes a second to kind of fix itself. Should be all right.
I am happy. You are happy.
Let us be happy together. All right. Okay, there we go. And then I'll put you there, and then ta-da. Okay, your Twitter handle is now on screen, so there you go. Yeah, so...
Well, no, so I was just saying, we thought that our system would go into theirs. That after the fall of the Soviet Union, it would be naturally our system of liberal democracy, because who doesn't want that, right? And instead what happened was their kleptocracy bled into ours. And it's going to take years for us to clear that out.
Well, it's because that's active versus passive measures. Our form of governance in its current form is passive. We all take it for granted. The rule of law is something we have never grown up without it. So only on moments like where stuff like January 6th happens, do we have a moment where we're like, holy shit, this might, maybe I've been assuming this will go on unabated and I was wrong, but most of the time we're like, yeah, this is rocks. Why would you not want this?
Yeah. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it's mostly Russians that bought out stuff in Trump Tower, so.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in London. I lived in London for 20 some odd years off and on. And I saw it all the time. CBS's bureau used to be in a part of London called Knightsbridge. And Knightsbridge is a really ritzy part of town.
Sure.
And, the amount of Russian that I started hearing in the early aughts on the streets of Knightsbridge, I was like, what's going on here? And they were showing up to unscrupulous property owners with suitcases filled with money that they had emptied out of the coffers, and their corruption bled into us as opposed to our liberal democracy bleeding into them. Do I still have an echo?
I don't think so. I think it's echo coming from Phil only. Huh? That's weird. I don't know why that would be. Your bike. Yeah, your bike. Hold on. Let me do this real quick and turn it back on. Hopefully that'll fix it. Let's see. We should be.
Let me turn my headphones.
I don't. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, because I don't hear an echo in that. So you sound fine to me. It should, in theory, go out the same way it comes in. Hello. Again, active measure versus passive measure. That's what we're dealing with. That the American system has been running on a relative autopilot, but for and that's what we've been taking elections for granted all this time. While they've been undermining the right to vote for minorities for a couple of decades, the Republicans at least have been in theory, running on equal footing, as they run for office. We know they've been mucking about trying to stop good voting machines from getting in places or whatever, but they haven't turned into an active measure attack on democracy until recently. Well, the Russians have been doing it forever. And the minute 1990, and I'm of the belief that maybe Gorbachev and Yeltsin were honest actors in all this stuff. But everybody behind them and on the sidelines, it dropped out. He'll be back in a second. Everybody on this, that was a weird, some sound coming back. I hear you, but I don't see you. So everybody around him was just using this as a rope-a-dope. Hold on. I'm going to switch to... Oh, he went away, and he'll be back. He's calling back in, I think. Oh, there he is. Hold on one second. Joining. We'll put him in guest 1. I'll take this guy out. Guest is in green room. He's welcome to be here. There you go. You're good. Add, let's see. Oh, I've got to add him in here. Hold on one second. There you go. There you go.
Oh, look at that question. Surrender Monkey is asking, how well would Matt Gaetz do in Russian political circles?
Oh, dear God.
Actually,
we're seeing it.
He would work pretty well because he would be compromised. Look, there was this guy who just died, Vladimir Zhirinovsky. Mm-hmm. And Zhirinovsky was a pretty, he liked his parties and he liked his girls and all the rest of it, but he was a useful clown that Putin could trot out occasionally and use. So Gates could be actually really useful. I mean, the same way as what's his name? The idiot who
Koser?
left to
Gomer?
run.
Nunes?
The idiot who left. Nunes, who went to go do. The social media. BS.
Right.
All those guys are perfect for an autocratic system because they're idiots and they're easily controllable because you know where their weaknesses and their vices are.
That's right.
The guys who wouldn't do well in okay, let's take a Republican. Romney would not do well in Putin's Russia because he doesn't toe the party line. Mm-hmm. Anybody who is speaking out, I mean, that's why Trump is so much a product of Putin and autocracies, is because he wants to create a system very much like that. So, well, we're having all sorts of technical difficulties with
we're good.
And the rest of it.
I think
all right.
I think we're good now.
I'm happy to keep talking until you go to Stuttering John. I'm happy to stay here as long as you want.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm picking away at it. I'm solving it behind the scenes as stuff goes on. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I think the idea of a possible nuclear strike and all that fear mongering around this is Russia's way of sort of attacking the West's desire to do something about this. They basically that mutual assured destruction, which used to be the predicate for not starting a nuclear war, has become a predicate for letting them do anything they damn well please. And that's the part that's falling apart. in terms of Russia's like desire somehow to, I guess, scare everyone away from protecting Ukraine.
Well, it's because they've got nothing else.
Right.
They have absolutely nothing else to deter us.
Yes.
We've woken up to the fact that their military is a paper tiger.
Yep.
We've woken up to the fact that they are nothing but malign actors on the global stage, and that they have no real good intentions. We've woken up to the fact that they gaslight everybody.
Yes.
We've woken up to the fact that they are just spreading corruption wherever they can, and those tentacles are everywhere now. So what have they got? What have they got to defend themselves with, or to persuade the global community?
Right.
And it's either their soft power that they've put into places like Africa, for example, or they've tried to make a relationship with China, and I think Xi is running a mile from them.
Yep.
And it's their nukes, and it's their and when they turned energy into a weapon. So now that we're starting to get away from all of those things, because we recognize that if you let Putin and the Russians, whoever comes after Putin, if you let the Russians control the narrative and control and run the show, because you're afraid of what they're going to do, then they're just going to do whatever they want. And it's
Well, and again,
it's unacceptable.
That's active versus passive. And this is why we have, in the West, why we have issues with like policing and criminality. Criminality is an active measure. Policing is a passive measure most of the time. It is responsive. And so after a while, after you've had a policing system for a long time, you start to take it for granted. It's the old Lenny Bruce thing about like people, throwing stuff at cops and calling them a fascist. And he's like, fascist, I'm the mailman. I'm here doing the job you don't want to do. There's this old, like, Lenny Bruce had this bit about how, like, we got to have some rules here. Otherwise, we're never going to get any sleep. So we eat in area A, we sleep in area B, we throw our garbage in area C. Guy goes to sleep, wakes up, get a face full of garbage. It's like, hey, I thought we had a rule here. Well, it's a religious holiday, and it's not your religion, so it's your ass. So, well, we can't do that. I don't care who it is. Your mother, brother, your aunt, nobody gives a shit. A, B, and C, or we're never going to get any sleep. And so they hire a cop to be the guy who makes sure A, B, and C are followed. And the cop is the example of A, B, and C. He's not a person in and of himself. He's an established element of the order that everybody needs just to get on with life. After a while, you take that for granted. And you kind of should be able to. We often talk about things we take for granted and we shouldn't. But if you pay taxes and all those kind of things, you should take it for granted that there's minimized crime and corruption, and SEC can go after people, and that regulations are followed so you don't have lead in the water, that kind of stuff. We should be able to take that for granted. And when it does fail, we can squeal a little bit and somebody will fix it because there's somebody to fix it. Because we've already established A, B, and C. In Russia, they are in the business of disassembling ABC. They don't want the eat in area A, sleep in area B, throw your garbage in area C to exist at all, because they operate entirely on the destruction of the simplest order of life for society. Because that's where the money is to be made. That's where death happens. That's where poisoning happens. That's where theft happens.
Unless you're in the elite. If you're in the elite, you get to make those rules. But
sure,
everybody else has got to live by the. Everybody else has got to live by the rule of might makes right.
That's stratosphere ruling. That's where you've got different laws at different levels of the stratosphere. But ultimately, that is anti-society as well. You got it. Yeah.
Bicycle Mike, Mazel Tov, 2 years cancer-free. Yay for you. Brenda, I did see that article. It was in Rhine Novosti, which is one of the most prominent
what article?
newspapers in Russia. It was an article put out by Rhine Novosti, which literally, in some ways, said, here's the final solution to the Ukrainian question. The Ukrainians who are Nazis are being supported by a petty bourgeoisie, it was almost like communist ideology that the bourgeoisie are only allowed to rule because of the petty bourgeoisie. So so we as the working class have to have a revolt against the bourgeoisie, and we have to take out the petty bourgeoisie. The same argument was made in our newspaper called Rye Novosti. It's actually a news agency, saying that because of the Nazis who run Ukraine are supported by these nationalists who support the Nazis, we have to take out all the Ukrainians. We got to kill all the Ukrainians because
this is exactly because there are some Jewish bankers. The Jews have to be wiped out. Why is that not? It's the exact same argument.
Exact same argument, and it's terrifying that a major news outlet.
Right.
It just tells you how quickly things are devolving in Russia.
And by the way, Aggie gave a super chat, and she said, I went to Ukraine for the first time in 1993, then in 1995. Amazing development between the visits. I wonder where my colleagues at the university are now. And then...
come and see.
Yep. Say what? Thanks for the super sticker. I appreciate that. And then Raymond said, this discussion and HSRPM every Saturday is everything we should be discoursing at all times among our peer groups and media. Well, it would be nice to be seeing this shared because I'm, Phil and I are yelling into the wind a little bit when it comes to the bigger propagandistic websites, especially on the right-wing lefties, which is the Russell Brands and the Jimmy Dores of the world, who are actively involved in pushing that exact narrative, that the denazification of Ukraine is a legitimate argument and that the people who are being murdered and raped in Ukraine deserve it because they're Nazi adjacent. I don't know how anybody can utter that kind of phrase on the regular and not finish every day punching themselves in the face. I don't get it, but
because also the Russians have started putting out. They've been really smart about this. Of course, they're smart about it because they study us.
It's all they do.
That's all they do. They focus on us. So they've done this whole thing where they have gotten to a point where they have equated nationalism with Nazism. Mm-hmm. So when Ukrainians say, I'm a Ukrainian nationalist, what they mean is literally, I believe that Ukraine should be a nation state. And
right.
The Russians have done a really good job of selling it to the reactionist left and right by equating nationalism with Nazism, and it's not the same thing. It's amazing. About a week ago, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on their social media put out an entire documentary about this, in which I speak Russian, so I was able to follow along with it in the native Russian as opposed to the subtitles. And what the Ukrainians were saying to the kind of pro-Russia, we should be buddies with Russia, Donbass is what we're doing in Donbass is wrong, and all this kind of stuff. But what the Ukrainians were saying back to them in Russian, by the way, it has to be said, was saying basically, no, I just want to have my own country. I mean, I'll speak to you in Russian because you're talking to me in Russian, and out of courtesy, I'm going to talk to you in Russian. But no, I think we should have our own country, and I think you're full of it, and that's why I'm a nationalist. And the subtitle was like, I want, Ukrainians for Ukraine, and Ukrainian nationalism means Ukraine, Ukrainians, you have to talk Ukrainian. And I was like, that's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
And if it's just so easy.
Well, the other thing,
and then, even I saw Anna Kasparian. I know we feel the same about the TYT crowd, but Anna put something out yesterday, and I just couldn't help but respond to it. And I shouldn't take the bait, but it's like, it's this simplification of I guess they want a black and white, or I guess they're so afraid of like standing up against a bully because they don't want to. Let's not get in a fight. Let's talk. Sometimes you have to punch the bully in the nose.
I will go even further than that. First of all, Cenk is a bully. And so they operate in a building with a bully all the time.
Right.
And so they are bully averse. Yeah. Of course. Right.
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 Everything is right. Right.
Mm-hmm. And they have to, otherwise they catch shit. So they dealing with bullies, in their workplace, they've also maximized their their passive response to it, their passive-aggressive response to it, and also minimized the effect of it in their lives. Because when they think the word bully, they think of a dickhead who's always yelling in their ear about stepping on his punchline or whatever he was talking about in a meeting after the broadcast, and then going off to scream at somebody who works behind a counter. So when you and I are talking about bullies, we're taking a word that's relatively small, a schoolyard word, and applying it to someone who is sending people in to rape and murder people. And as you know, we are euphemistically upplaying the word, where they are euphemistically downplaying the word all the time. Now, the other thing is that they are so committed to the idea that they have been sold for the last 4 decades that America does no good in the world.
I love this point.
Every adventure that America has gone forward into, and the ones we don't, is America bad. Think of Rwanda. America did not act in Rwanda, and we should have, and so America bad. America did act in, say, Afghanistan, and we shouldn't have,
Serbia.
and therefore America bad. Right, Serbia, yeah, any of those places. With the illusion that goes with that sort of passive-aggressive dealing with a bully in their own environment, that if we just would stop, if everybody would just stop talking for a second, if we just step away, if I could just leave the room, everything will go back to, it'll normalize out. When in reality, we especially now know, and I would say to anybody who thinks that American adventurism, or that we're playing the cop of the world, or we're being the soldier, we're trying to enforce democracy at the barrel of a gun, any of the stuff that the Bush administration may have tried, that a lot of us protested against, and why I voted for Joe Biden, and why I voted for John Kerry, and why I voted for for Bill Clinton, and why I voted for Barack Obama, that's why. Because it does matter who has their hands on the controls of this country, because it can be it is an extraordinary tool, and it can be used for good or ill. And if you want it to be used for good, in a choice between what you think is the lesser of two evils, always choose less evil, or you're not making a choice at all. But when it comes to American support for Ukraine, or our work with NATO, or any of our outreach in the rest of the world,
USAID.
Yeah, USAID. Without it, there are hundreds of millions of dead people. Sorry. The minute if we cut off USAID tomorrow, 100 million people will starve to death in 6 months. Nobody is there.
I love the fact that organizations like TYT, or the people who have that mentality about the Americans, they always fixate on, and again, I looked up what it was that I was responding to Kasparian about, and it was just that. It was this whole narrative, like, people who think about what Russia is doing is terrible should really reconsider the fact of all the things that we did. And I couldn't let that go. I couldn't. No. I know I shouldn't have risen to the bait.
Yeah, it's lazy whataboutism, and it also puts stuff on the same. It equates the
false equivalency.
It puts it on the same control structure, because we have more of a say in it, and we can shit on our government all we want, and we're in the habit of doing it because that's another thing we take for granted. Because as much as I despise Jimmy Dore and his bullshit, hateful, violent, grotesque narrative, every show he does is an example of how great this country is, because he can go on every single day and call everyone who works in our government any number of awful names, assume the worst in everyone, make bad faith arguments every single day because of the country he's in. And if he was in Russia or any of these other countries and he tried it in an afternoon, he would vanish. Edward Snowden, for all we know, is dead, if not just gone right now. He has not tweeted since February 27th. And RT America was not shut down by the Americans. RT America, they folded their tent. You know why? Because as dickish as Lee Camp and some of these other people are about the United States, again, they can say all those things on our shores. They can say all those things because our system allows for it. The Russian system does not. And the minute it was known that Jesse Ventura, anybody who had a show on their network was going to get asked, hey, you're on RT, what do you think about the invasion of Ukraine? All of them, to the person, As much as I might think some of them are dicks or lying or bloviating all the time, all of them would not be able to say, I'm for it. Even with all their baggage, even with all their bullshit, I have no doubt that most of the hosts of RT America, like some of the RT hosts in Russia, the Russian ones, said, I can't support this. And that's why they had to shut it down. They can't let it exist because that's not their system. So as bad as our system is and as flawed as it is, the one thing it allows for is us to make changes. Every 4 years, we get a bite at this apple and we get to change this. And it does matter who runs it because the decisions made while in power will impact millions of lives all over the planet. But if the day we pull out and we just go, fuck it, we're not doing anything anymore. There is a power vacuum that will be filled by people who genuinely want the worst and most awful, and namely China and Russia these days.
The whole USAID thing. I mean, we don't toot our horn too much about that, and I'm not going to get into that angle about it. But I love the argument that you make, Hal, about how, and I'll defer to you, coming from Hollywood, that you were able to make this point, and it was a light bulb moment for me, is the fact that, like, all those movies that paint us as the bad guys that come out of Hollywood, we do that because we can.
Yeah.
We do that because if we paint ourselves as the bad guys, nobody's going to come after Hollywood. If we did that to the FSB or to, I mean, look what happened with The Interview, right? I mean, where they kind of poked fun at the North Koreans, and there was so of course Hollywood can be comfortable going after coming after America. And
again, when is the last time you saw a story about a CIA agent in the United States in any movie or television show where they didn't have to go rogue to do the right thing, they weren't fighting against a fellow CIA agent doing blowback, or that they weren't the entirety of the bad news in it, and the character that you rooted for was like, in War Incorporated or Lords of War, where they were a contractor.
Or they were just a two-dimensional action hero.
Right. Yes. And even then, they're usually the rogue good guy, right? They're like, I'm the one good person. Honestly, it's nonsense. Yeah. It's nonsense.
So after, I mean, that really kind of started in the 60s, 70s, I would say.
Yeah.
Where Hollywood started.
It ended with 3 Days of the Condor.
Exactly that kind. Well, and then there was the post-Watergate period where there was an awful lot of cynicism and going on and all the rest of it. So after a half a century where we paint ourselves as the villain, are you really going to think that maybe some people aren't going to go, you know what, that's right, America,
we are the only person doing. I've never seen anything where the GRU or they're actually almost everywhere, the only people they come in contact with that are part of a legit organization in fictional work right now, especially GRU or the Chinese services, are positive. They're almost never encountering.
Except for MI6, we have that love for the Brits.
No. What I'm saying is the adversarial ones. Literally, GRU. Anytime you see a GRU agent, with a rarity of the Americans, I suppose, as a series, but even that is like, I don't know, they're just trying. They were put in a bad position by their government, or that kind of thing. But the GRU and the Chinese spies are always like, we're on your side, kinda. I mean, we know these guys are bad, but ultimately, most of us are good guys. Like, so 80% of the GRU are good guys just fighting for their country, and 99% of the CIA is full of Tommy Lee Jones in Under Siege. It's just silly. It's hack at this point.
Yeah,
it's
we
hack.
do like to villainize like Russia. We like to use Russia mafia, and we love that accent. That accent is just dripping of like. Ugh,
yeah, but that's mafia. That's mafia.
Yeah, no, I know, but this is.
That's that's criminals.
Here, Bill asked me, what happens to Russia after the war is over? How damaged are they on the world stage, and for how long? Bill, I think this is catastrophic for Russia. I think that I think the West the Brits in particular, the Brits and the Yanks in particular, are going to pummel Russia over this. They are going to absolutely pummel Russia over this. They're going to use this as an opportunity to defang them. Now, does that mean a collapse? Does that mean a breakup in the Federation? I mean, I don't know. Let's wait and see. That's been a problem for Russia for centuries. So,
right.
What happens after the war? Nothing good.
Have you seen? Yeah, no. I mean, they're already on the way out. It's just the reality of it. Have you seen any of Peter Zeihan's work? Have you ever watched any of his stuff? Zeihan wrote a book called The Accidental Superpower, and then he's working on a new book that's supposed to come out soon called The End of the World is Just the Beginning. And it's about the world order as it's been since World War II, and how the U.S., with our Navy, policed the seas effectively and made world trade possible. And the only thing we asked in return from all these countries that we policed the seas for them was back us and not the Soviets. That's all we asked. We're not going to do it at the barrel of a gun, but if you want to be part of this new sandbox we're creating, all you have to do is be a democracy and allow your citizens to vote, or at least have some predication that you're moving in that direction. And we did that for forever. And China got on board with it to some degree and benefited from it, while sort of, we had to walk this line between, what China is and what China says they are for a long time, over the course of them opening up and becoming, more liberalized in their economy, while the CCP still ran things. And that was always the balancing act. But ultimately, the idea is that where we screwed up with the Russians, by thinking they would jump in and become a functioning, capitalist structure where everybody got along quickly, the Chinese were like, we'll slow pedal this and let them go at their own pace. And because we weren't in a Cold War with them directly. And so on the one hand, Deng Xiaoping's idea of liberalizing everything started working. It really did. Millions of people lifted out of poverty, not because of an action of the government, but because industry came in, food and resources came in. China is a net importer of food and a net importer of technology, and not including the stuff they steal. But that's been kind of growing like a Jiffy Pop for a long time. Unfortunately, it had to pop because they decided, oh, okay, now that we've got all that stuff, we'll go back to pre-Deng Xiaoping strategies and we'll become more draconian and we'll shut everything off. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work on the world stage. So we were like, well, tell you what, we're going to form TPP, and we'll work with other countries that do want to let their citizens vote, including Taiwan. And that's the straw with China. The same thing is sort of true of the Russian world order. And Russia has been benefiting from the world order that benefited China, because the eastern part of the country, the goods that come out of there, the fish, the caviar, the oil and gas that goes into the eastern countries, have gone through China largely. So they benefited from the infrastructure and all that stuff.
Is logging in timber? Is that
depends.
I'm deferring to you.
It splits two directions. The majority of the eastern stuff, the timber's no good because the land's frozen 80% of the year. It's permafrost. It's terrible.
It's all birch.
Over near St. Petersburg, that's where it ends up being used by the Swedes to make particle board furniture. It just gets ground up.
I was just wondering if the Chinese. And
nope.
That's why I said I was going to defer to you
now,
on that.
They've got a lot of trees. They don't have a lot of arable land, and the Chinese have been poisoning their farmland for the last 2 decades, and it's getting worse all the time. And when I was talking about that demographic shift that was going on in Russia, where they're at 1.2 births per female in the country. They were in 2012. They got up to 1.7. Now they're back down to 1.5. And this does not include premature deaths from war, which is all their, fuckable men getting killed effectively, which is what happens when a country goes to war, is that they sacrifice future generations, killing their 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. And so in terms of their demographic, not only are they half a point lower than most of Europe already, just in birth rates, but their premature deaths are higher. The suicide rate in Russia is 3 times that of most of Europe.
Yeah. Well, and they drink themselves to death. There's no getting around it.
Well, they have 300,000 excess deaths from cancer every year. The Russians lose like 2 million people to have 2 million deaths a year. In a country of 144 million, that's a significant amount if you're only at 1.2 births. Now, the United States, we don't have that problem because we are always going to be an immigrant country. So if we don't have a birth rate, the best of the birth rate world over will find its way, including Russia's, will find its way here. The same thing is sort of true of some of the European countries, but less so when they have national identity that's wrapped around a race, like the French or the Germans or the Brits. There's, it's still a minimal amount. You can't look on anybody's 23andMe and find American. It doesn't work that way. And so everybody can come here. So our demographic has not collapsed, by the way. We're having plenty of kids. But on top of that, the best and the brightest can always come here, and they can benefit from the system that we have. That's always been true. That's why, like, Mitt Romney's big plan was self-deportation. People will just go the fuck home, right? Which I don't know how that works, other than the fact that Mexico is probably demographically our only equal in our hemisphere. But over the course of, like, Russia's, for the next 15 years, there is no reason to believe, war or no war, that Russia exists as a country, as a singular country, that it doesn't break up into 3 territories. And in 10 years, China's looking at the same thing. 5 provinces.
Or a looser confederation, maybe. Or,
right.
I don't know. I mean, it's predicting that is tough because you're literally talking about hundreds of years of history.
But they aren't, because the Qin dynasty, which is when we started recognizing China as that, that's been an artificial conglomeration since it started. It's required constant, but like harsh security to maintain. It requires barrel of the gun diplomacy to stitch that together. The United States doesn't have that problem. The UK doesn't have that problem, except, you'd look at Ireland almost as that. Imagine six. Imagine 6. Yeah, the Scots aren't having a war the way the Irish were.
The Scots aren't going to do it. The Scots are going to do it at the ballot box. They're not going to do it with weapons.
Imagine 6 Irelands stitched together around one London that is insisting it control everything, and then try to hold that together.
Why do you think the Serbs are willing to accept their minor Slav status that they get from Moscow? No other, I can't think off the top of my head another Slavic nation that is happy to live under the thumb of Moscow. But the Serbs are fine with it because they're surrounded by people who would rather see
which is also why
into the Adriatic.
It's why a bunch of those Russian troops that are surrounding there, keeping that territory, can't go up to Ukraine and fight. And if they do, if they rotate the green conscripts down to that place so that they can move those guys up, everybody around there is going to go, these guys are fucking new. These are the guys who are getting their asses kicked in Ukraine. We can take these guys. It's a terrible position they're in. Anyways, I'm over time. I'm going to jump over onto John's show. And
always a pleasure. Shoot
love
me a line about Monday. Let's do Monday.
I will. So it's 9 a.m. my time. I know that's ass in the morning your time, but hopefully we can make that work. And and we'll. I'm sure everybody who has questions and conversation stuff can come back around then. And join me on then.
Shoot me a line. Let me know the specifics, and I'll call in.
That's right. Okay.
Sorry,
awesome.
I only got about half. I'm glad we got to talk afterwards. I had to go to the meeting. It was worth it. So. Lots more to come.
I insist.
Things are about to get really interesting here.
I agree. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for the super chats and the support today. Thanks. And take care of yourself, and we'll see you later. Bye. See you later. Cheers. Hold on. I got to jump screens.